When she came back. Chapter 1. The marble terrace of Shelly's villa glowed under strings of warm fairy lights, casting a golden haze over the 30 or so guests who had come to celebrate the merger. Shelly stood near the long teak table laden with champagne flutes and delicate canapes, her tailored black suit hugging her tall frame with quiet authority. At 32, she was one of the most respected corporate lawyers in Bangkok, and tonight, that respect had solidified into dominance. Her firm and her longtime friends had just become the largest practice in the country. Toasts had already been raised, smiles were plentiful. Yet Shelly's expression remained composed, almost distant, the way it had been for the last 4 years. "Darling, you should smile more. It's your night," her mother Wing murmured beside her, adjusting the collar of Shelly's crisp white shirt with practiced maternal fussing. Wing's silk cheongsam shimmered in deep emerald, her hair swept up in an elegant chignon. Beside her, Shelly's father Ming nursed a whiskey and surveyed the crowd with the sharp eyes of a man who had built an empire from nothing. "I'm smiling on the inside," Shelly replied dryly. A faint twitch at the corner of her mouth was the best she could manage. Her gaze drifted toward the play area at the far end of the garden, where her 5-year-old daughter Kim was carefully arranging her collection of toy cars under the watchful eye of the nanny. A soft laugh floated from her left. Prim, their neighbor from the villa 2 plots down, leaned against the balustrade in a figure-hugging red dress that left little to the imagination. Her long, dark hair cascaded over one shoulder as she tilted her head, eyes fixed on Shelly with open admiration. "You really are stunning when you're in work mode," Prim purred, stepping closer. "That merger speech earlier? I nearly melted. Kim would be so lucky to have a mummy who's both brilliant and powerful." She reached out, brushing an invisible speck from Shelly's lapel, letting her fingers linger. Shelly's smile didn't reach her eyes. "Thank you, Prim, but as I've said before, I'm not looking." "You haven't been looking for 4 years," Prim countered gently, undeterred. "A woman like you shouldn't have to raise a child alone. I could be good for both of you. Kim just needs time to warm up to me." From across the garden, Kim looked up at the mention of her name and scowled the moment she spotted Prim. The little girl's small hands tightened around her favorite red toy car. She had made her feelings about Auntie Prim abundantly clear on more than one occasion, usually by hiding the woman's shoes or declaring loudly that she already had 2 mummies, even if one was on a long trip. Wing cleared her throat politely. "Prim, dear, would you like more champagne? Ming, help me with the guests, won't you?" The subtle parental rescue was not lost on Shelly, but she appreciated it. Prim had been persistent for months, offering to be Kim's new mummy with increasing boldness. Shelly felt nothing beyond mild irritation. Her heart had been locked away since the day Pundao walked out without a word, leaving behind only a sleeping toddler and a house full of unanswered questions. The low hum of conversation was interrupted by the crunch of tires on the gravel driveway. An unfamiliar black sedan pulled up slowly beyond the open gates. Heads turned. Shelly's brow furrowed. No one else was expected. Security had been strict. The car door opened. A woman stepped out. She wore a simple white blouse tucked into dark jeans, her hair shorter than Shelly remembered, falling just past her shoulders in loose waves. Even from a distance, the familiar curve of her jaw, the way she carried herself with quiet determination, hit Shelly like a physical blow. The champagne flute in Shelly's hand nearly slipped. "Pundao." Kim's head snapped up at the same moment. Wing had been whispering something to the child, and now Kim's small face lit up with a mixture of shock and pure, unfiltered joy. "May Pundao?" the little girl whispered, then louder, "May Pundao!" Kim bolted across the lawn, tiny legs pumping, toy car forgotten in the grass. The nanny tried to follow but stopped short when she saw the expression on the newcomer's face. Pundao dropped to one knee just as Kim launched herself into her arms. The impact made Pundao sway, but she held on tight, burying her face in the child's dark hair. Kim's arms wrapped around her neck like she would never let go. "You came back," Kim sobbed happily. "You really came back. I told everyone you would. I drew pictures for you every day." Shelly's feet moved before her brain caught up. She crossed the terrace and descended the shallow steps, guests parting instinctively. Ming and Wing exchanged tense glances but stayed back, giving their daughter the lead. When Shelly reached them, Pundao was still kneeling, Kim clinging to her like a koala. Up close, Pundao looked different, thinner. There were faint shadows under her eyes that makeup couldn't fully hide, and a new scar, small and pale, near her left temple. But those eyes, warm brown, steady, filled with a storm of emotions, were the same ones that had once looked at Shelly with forever in them. "What are you doing here?" Shelly's voice was low, controlled, but edged with ice. 4 years, Pundao. 4 years of nothing. No calls, no letters, not even a goddamn text, and you just show up at my home? Pundao rose slowly, lifting Kim with her. The child refused to loosen her grip, small face pressed into Pundao's shoulder. "I came to see our daughter," Pundao said quietly. Her Australian accent was still there, softened by years in Thailand. "I know I don't deserve to stand here, but I couldn't stay away anymore." Shelly's hands clenched at her sides. "You don't get to decide that. You left. You abandoned us when she was barely 1. She cried for you for months. I had to explain to a toddler why her other mother disappeared in the middle of the night." Guests were pretending not to watch, but the party had gone deathly quiet. Prim hovered near the terrace, lips pressed into a thin line. "I never stopped thinking about you," Pundao whispered, eyes locked on Shelly's. "Not for one single day. But I thought it was better this way. I thought I'd never be able to come back." "Better?" Shelly's laugh was bitter. "You thought vanishing was better? I had to tell our friends you were dead, Pundao, because the truth, that you just walked out, was too humiliating. My parents had to watch me fall apart while I tried to be strong for Kim." Kim whimpered, sensing the rising tension. "Mummy, don't be mad at May, Pundao. She's home now. We can be a family again." The innocent plea pierced straight through Shelly's armor. She reached out and gently stroked her daughter's back, but her gaze never left Pundao's face. "This isn't the time or place. You need to leave." "I'm not leaving without seeing her," Pundao said firmly, "and I'm not leaving without talking to you." Shelly stepped closer, voice dropping to a furious whisper. "You forfeited any right to talk when you disappeared. Kim is my responsibility now. You don't get to waltz back in and play mother after 4 years of silence." Pundao's jaw tightened, but she kept her voice soft for Kim's sake. "She's our daughter, Shelly. She was born from your egg, but I carried her. I gave birth to her. I loved her, loved both of you, more than anything. I still do." Kim pulled back just enough to look between them, big eyes shiny with tears but hopeful. "Please don't fight. May Pundao promised she'd come back one day. She kept her promise." The fight drained from Shelly's shoulders, not because she forgave anything, but because she would not traumatize her child in front of strangers. She exhaled slowly, the sound shaky. "Fine," she said tightly. "Stay for Kim. But this doesn't change anything between us. After the party, we talk. Alone. And then you leave." Pundao nodded, though her eyes said she had no intention of simply leaving. She pressed a kiss to Kim's temple, murmuring something in the girl's ear that made Kim giggle through her tears. Wing and Ming approached then, expressions carefully neutral. Wing placed a hand on Shelly's arm while Ming greeted Pundao with a curt nod that held layers of history Shelly didn't yet understand. The party resumed in awkward fragments, guests murmuring, champagne flowing again, but the air had shifted. Prim watched from the sidelines with narrowed eyes, clearly displeased by the new arrival. Shelly stood a few feet away, arms crossed, watching Pundao laugh softly at something Kim whispered. The sight twisted something deep in her chest: anger, longing, betrayal, and a terrifying spark of relief she refused to name. Pundao had come back, and nothing was going to be the same. The last guests trickled out through the grand front doors as the grandfather clock in the foyer struck 11. Ming and Wing handled the farewells with practiced grace, smiling, thanking everyone for coming, promising follow-up lunches and golf games. Prim lingered the longest, shooting Shelly one last hopeful yet sour glance before finally stepping into her own waiting car. She had clearly wanted to say more about the sudden reappearance of the runaway wife, but Ming's firm hand on her shoulder guided her out. Once the driveway was empty and the gates closed, the house fell into a heavy silence, broken only by the distant sound of Kim's excited chatter upstairs. The nanny had taken her to bed after the little girl refused to let go of Pundao's hand until promised that May Pundao would still be there in the morning. Shelly stood in the hallway, jaw tight. "Office, now." Pundao followed without protest. Her footsteps were quiet on the polished teak floors as they moved down the corridor to the private study at the back of the villa. Shelly flicked on the desk lamp, bathing the room in warm amber light. Floor-to-ceiling bookshelves lined one wall, while glass doors opened onto a dark garden. She closed the heavy door behind them with a decisive click. The moment they were alone, Shelly rounded on her. "You have no place in our lives anymore, Pundao." "None." Pundao's eyes flashed with pain, but she held her ground, standing tall in the center of the room. "Of course I do. I'm still your wife. I'm still Kim's mother. I want to be with both of you again." Shelly let out a sharp, disbelieving laugh. She paced behind the large mahogany desk, hands gripping the back of her leather chair until her knuckles whitened. "You abandoned us. When Kim was barely 1 year old, you packed a bag in the middle of the night and vanished. No note, no explanation, nothing. I spent months thinking you were dead. Or worse, that you had simply stopped loving us." "I never stopped loving you," Pundao said, voice cracking slightly. "Not for a second." "Then where the hell were you?" Shelly slammed her hand on the desk. The sound echoed. 4 years, Pundao. 4 years of silence while I raised our daughter alone, while I explained to her why her other mummy wasn't coming home. Tell me, where were you?" Pundao looked down for a long moment, swallowing hard. When she lifted her gaze again, there was steel in it. "I can't tell you that yet. Not tonight. But I swear on Kim's life it wasn't because I didn't want you." Shelly's chest heaved. "That's not good enough. Not even close." "I know it isn't," Pundao admitted. She took a step closer. "But we're still married. There was never a divorce. I'm coming back to this house. I'm coming back to my family." Fury boiled over in Shelly's veins. She strode around the desk, stopping inches from Pundao. "You think you can just decide that? After everything? Leave, Pundao. Go find some other fool who doesn't know what it feels like to be left behind with a crying baby and a broken heart." Pundao's expression darkened. She reached out and caught Shelly's wrist gently but firmly. "Do you really want that? You want me to belong to someone else?" The question hung in the charged air between them. Pundao's voice dropped, low and intense. "Am I not your wife? Am I somebody else's?" Shelly's breath hitched. The words tore something open inside her. All the rage, the sleepless nights, the quiet grief she had buried for Kim's sake. It surged forward like a tidal wave. Were you somebody else's? Shelly whispered harshly, eyes burning. While you were away? Pundao shook her head immediately, stepping even closer until their bodies nearly touched. No, never. That was the breaking point. Shelly couldn't control herself any longer. She grabbed Pundao by the hips, spun her around, and lifted her onto the edge of the desk in one swift motion. Papers scattered. The desk lamp wobbled but stayed upright. Pundao gasped as Shelly pushed between her legs, hands already working at the button of Pundao's jeans. You left me. Shelly growled against her mouth before claiming it in a bruising kiss. It wasn't gentle. It was teeth and desperation, and 4 years of pent-up fury. Her tongue pushed inside, tasting, punishing, reclaiming. Pundao moaned into the kiss, fingers threading through Shelly's perfectly styled hair and messing it up. Shelly yanked Pundao's jeans down just enough, then hooked her fingers into the waistband of her panties, simple black cotton, and dragged them down her thighs. She shoved the damp fabric into her own jacket pocket. Her hand slid between Pundao's legs, finding her already wet, slick with need. Fuck, you're soaked, Shelly hissed. 2 fingers slid through warm, swollen folds before pushing deep inside without warning. Pundao cried out, back arching, nails digging into Shelly's shoulders through the suit jacket. Shelly fucked her hard with her fingers, deep, relentless strokes that curled just right against that sensitive spot inside. Her thumb pressed and circled Pundao's swollen clit in tight, demanding motions. The wet, obscene sounds filled the quiet office. Pundao's hips rocked desperately against her hand, chasing the pleasure Shelly was forcing on her. Look at me, Shelly ordered, voice rough. Pundao's eyes fluttered open, glazed with lust and emotion. Shelly kissed her again, slower this time but no less intense, swallowing every moan as her fingers drove faster. She added a 3rd finger, stretching her, filling her completely while her thumb rubbed merciless circles over her clit. Pundao came with a broken sob, thighs clamping around Shelly's hand, inner walls pulsing and fluttering hard around her fingers. Her whole body shook as the orgasm crashed through her. Shelly didn't stop, drawing it out with slower, deeper thrusts until Pundao was whimpering, oversensitive and spent. But Shelly wasn't done. She pulled her fingers free, put them in Pundao's mouth, and Pundao licked them clean while staring into Shelly's eyes. Then, Shelly shoved her trousers and underwear down in one impatient movement, and they pooled on her ankles. Shelly positioned herself between Pundao's spread thighs again, gripping Pundao's ass with both hands and pulling her right to the edge of the desk, their bare, heated pussies pressed together. Shelly started grinding, hard. Wet folds slid against each other, slick arousal mixing, clit rubbing directly against clit with every powerful roll of her hips. The friction was electric, almost too much. Shelly humped her with raw, frustrated need, long, deep thrusts that made their bodies slap together wetly, her hips pumping and pushing with relentless force. 4 years, Shelly panted against Pundao's neck, biting down hard enough to leave a mark. 4 fucking years I waited. I hated you. I missed you. Each word was punctuated by a sharp snap of her hips, grinding harder, faster, their swollen clits catching and dragging with delicious pressure. Pundao's legs wrapped around her waist, heels digging into Shelly's back, pulling her impossibly closer. Yes, Shelly. Pundao moaned, head thrown back, breasts heaving beneath her blouse. Shelly reached up and yanked the blouse open, buttons flying, exposing soft skin. Is this what you want? Shelly groaned out aggressively. She latched onto a nipple, sucking hard while continuing to pump and thrust their pussies together in a messy, urgent rhythm. Yes, Pundao said. Give it to me. Let it out. The desk creaked beneath them. Pundao's hands clawed at Shelly's back, suit jacket bunching up. Shelly fucked her with everything she had: anger, love, betrayal, relief, all of it pouring out in the relentless slide of slick flesh against flesh. Sweat slicked their skin. The air smelled of sex and expensive perfume. Every thrust sent sparks of overwhelming pleasure through both of them, their clits throbbing and rubbing until neither could think. Pundao came again first, a sharp, keening cry as her clit pulsed hard against Shelly's. Her hips jerked wildly, fresh wetness coating them both. The sensation pushed Shelly over the edge seconds later. She groaned deeply, grinding down with stuttering, forceful movements as her own orgasm ripped through her, coming hard against Pundao's soaked pussy. Their releases mixed, messy and claiming, dripping onto the edge of the desk. They stayed locked together for a long moment, panting, foreheads pressed together. Shelly's body trembled with the aftershocks. Finally, she pulled back. The anger wasn't gone, but it had been dulled, exhausted for the moment. She stepped away, fixing her own clothes with shaky hands. "Please go," Shelly said quietly, voice hoarse. "Just go for tonight." Pundao slid off the desk on unsteady legs. She didn't bother searching for her panties. Shelly still had them in her pocket. Instead, she pulled her jeans back up, buttoned what remained of her blouse, and looked at Shelly with soft, determined eyes. "I'll call tomorrow to arrange seeing Kim." She paused at the door. "This isn't over." Then she was gone, the door clicking shut behind her. Shelly sank into her office chair, elbows on the desk, face buried in her hands. The scent of Pundao still clung to her skin. Her body still hummed with the afterglow of furious, desperate sex. Outside, the night was quiet once more, but inside, everything had been shattered open again.
Chapter 2. The late afternoon sun filtered through the tall iron gates of Shelly's villa in the upscale Sukhumvit district, casting long shadows across the manicured lawn. The house stood as a testament to Shelly's success as a prominent corporate lawyer. 3 stories of sleek, modern architecture with floor-to-ceiling windows that offered views of the private pool sparkling like a blue jewel under the Thai sky. Inside, the air carried the faint, comforting scent of lemongrass and garlic from the kitchen, where the nanny, Aunt Noi, was preparing dinner. 5-year-old Kim sat at the large oak dining table in the living room, her small tongue poking out in concentration as she colored a family portrait with bright crayons. The drawing showed 2 mummies holding hands with a little girl between them, one tall figure with dark, straight hair like Shelly's, the other with a warm, playful smile that Kim remembered in fragments from her earliest years. The doorbell rang, sharp and insistent, cutting through the peaceful domestic hum. Shelly, still dressed in her tailored black pantsuit from a full day at the firm, glanced up from her laptop on the coffee table. She had been reviewing notes for a high-stakes merger case, her serious expression etched with the fatigue of single parenthood balanced with a demanding career. Her parents, Ming and Wing, were visiting as they did most evenings to help with Kim, Ming tinkering with some garden tools out back, Wing curled up with a novel on the sofa. The nanny moved toward the door, but Shelly raised a hand. "I'll get it." She opened the heavy wooden door, and the world seemed to tilt on its axis. Pundao stood on the threshold, a worn suitcase gripped tightly in one hand. She looked every bit the woman who had once been the center of Shelly's universe, yet altered by time and unseen trials. Her hair was shorter now, falling in sun-kissed, tousled waves just past her shoulders. She wore a simple white blouse tucked into faded jeans, her posture defiant and shoulders squared as if bracing for the storm she knew was coming. Those dark, expressive eyes that had once drawn Shelly in with laughter and passion, locked onto hers with a fierce, unwavering determination. "Shelly," Pundao said, her voice steady but threaded with deep emotion. "I'm home." For a moment, Shelly couldn't breathe. Then fury surged through her like wildfire, twisting her usually composed features into a mask of anger. "Home? You have no home here anymore. You left us 4 years ago. Without a single explanation, without a call, without anything. Get off my property before I call security and have you removed." The words had barely left her mouth when soft, rapid footsteps echoed across the marble floor behind her. May Pundao? Kim's voice started tentative, laced with sleepy recognition from old photos and bedtime stories, then exploded into pure, unbridled joy. May Pundao, you came back! You really came back! Kim launched herself forward like a small rocket, wrapping her tiny arms around Pundao's legs with all the strength her 5-year-old body could muster. Pundao dropped the suitcase with a thud and immediately scooped her daughter up into a tight embrace, burying her face in the girl's dark hair as tears glistened in her eyes. My sweet baby, look at you, so big and strong now. I missed you every single day, Kimmy, more than you can ever know. Shelly stood frozen in the doorway, her heart hammering painfully against her ribs. She watched helplessly as Kim's laughter bubbled up, filling the entrance hall with light and hope. Mummy, please, May Pundao can stay, right? She has to stay with us. We can be a family again like in my drawing. Ming and Wing had appeared in the hallway by now, drawn by the commotion. Wing's hand flew to her mouth in surprise, while Ming's sharp eyes narrowed with a mix of calculation and quiet knowledge. As Shelly's father, Ming had always been the protector of the family, the one with deep connections who had quietly investigated Pundao's sudden disappearance years ago. But he said nothing now, letting the scene unfold. Shelly pinched the bridge of her nose, fighting the wave of emotions threatening to overwhelm her carefully maintained control. Kim, sweetheart, this isn't that simple. May Pundao can't just... Please, Mummy. I want both my mummies together. Pretty please? Kim held up her crayon drawing insistently, the paper crinkling in her excited grip. The family smiled under a lopsided rainbow, hearts drawn floating around them. Shelly's jaw tightened until it ached. She couldn't wage this battle in front of their daughter. Not when Kim's eyes were shining with such desperate, innocent hope. It would break her heart. Fine, she said through gritted teeth. For tonight only. The guest room. We will talk about this properly tomorrow, like adults. Pundao set Kim down gently, but kept one protective hand on her small shoulder, her gaze never wavering from Shelly's. I'm not here for just one night, Shelly. I'm here for my family, for our daughter, and for you, whether you want to admit it or not. You forfeited any claim to this family the day you walked out without looking back. Shelly hissed under her breath, as Kim excitedly dragged Pundao inside by the hand, already chattering non-stop about her toys, her new swing set in the garden, and the drawing she wanted to show her. The evening unfolded in a tense, fragile politeness, all for Kim's sake. Dinner around the large table was a minefield of forced smiles and careful conversation. Kim insisted on sitting between her two mummies, demanding stories from Mai Pundao's big adventure far away. Pundao crafted vague, light-hearted tales of life in Australia, vast beaches, strange animals, and odd jobs, carefully skirting any mention of the darkness that had consumed those years. Shelly ate in near silence, her fork scraping sharply against the porcelain plate, her appetite non-existent. Her parents exchanged subtle glances across the table. Wing reached out once to squeeze Pundao's hand under the table when Kim wasn't looking, a small gesture of quiet support. After dinner and bath time, during which Kim demanded that both mummies read her a story together, Shelly finally led Pundao upstairs to the guest room on the second floor. It was a spacious, elegantly appointed space with neutral tones, its own ensuite bathroom, and a large king bed that had only ever hosted occasional visitors or family. This is where you'll sleep. Do not touch anything else in this house. Tomorrow, we discuss custody arrangements through lawyers, like civilized people. Pundao leaned casually against the doorframe, arms crossed over her chest, that familiar, playful smirk tugging at the corners of her lips. Civilized? That's rich coming from you, Shelly. We were never exactly civilized in the master bedroom down the hall, were we? All those nights... Shelly slammed the door shut in her face, the sound echoing through the hallway. Work the following day was a relentless blur for Shelly. Meetings with demanding clients, depositions that required her full sharp focus, and endless emails about mergers and acquisitions. She threw herself into the high-pressure world of corporate law as a shield against the chaos waiting at home. Her phone buzzed mid-afternoon with a photo from Kim, her and Pundao building an elaborate blanket fort in the living room, both grinning widely. The message, typed with grandparents' help, read, "We are so happy now. Come home soon, Mummy." By the time Shelly's sleek Mercedes pulled into the driveway that evening, exhaustion clung to her like a second skin. She wanted nothing more than a glass of chilled white wine, a long hot bath, and the solitary comfort of her own bed. Instead, what she found upon entering the master bedroom made her blood boil instantly. The door was slightly ajar. Pundao's suitcase lay open on the floor. Her clothes, some familiar favorites from years ago mixed with newer, simpler pieces, hung neatly in the walk-in closet right beside Shelly's collection of tailored suits and blouses. Toiletries were arranged on the bathroom counter. On the nightstand that had once been Pundao's, a framed photo of the three of them from Kim's first birthday smiled back at her. "What the hell do you think you're doing?" Shelly stormed into the room, her voice low and vibrating with barely contained rage. Pundao stepped out from the closet, holding one of Shelly's favorite silk robes as if appraising it. She was dressed in a loose tank top and comfortable shorts, her hair still damp from a recent shower. A playful challenge sparkled in her eyes. "Unpacking, obviously. We're still legally married, Shelly. No divorce papers were ever filed. This is our marital bed. I'm entitled to sleep here right next to my wife." "You are entitled to absolutely nothing." Shelly grabbed an armful of Pundao's shirts from the drawer and began shoving them aggressively back into the open suitcase. "Get your things out of here right now. This is my room, my space. You gave it up." Pundao moved quickly, catching Shelly's wrist in a gentle but firm grip and pulling her closer. The familiar scent of her skin, soap and something uniquely Pundao, stirred unwelcome memories. "I never stopped thinking about you, about both of you. I stayed away because I believed it was the only way to protect you and Kim from everything that was happening. I didn't want you waiting, wondering, living with uncertainty and pain. But I'm back now, and I'm fighting for us." Shelly yanked her hand free, her chest heaving with the force of her emotions. "Protect us? By vanishing without a trace? You don't get to waltz back in here after 4 years and claim everything like nothing happened." Their argument escalated in heated whispers and sharp gestures, both women acutely aware of Kim sleeping peacefully just down the hall. Pundao remained relentless, teasing and dodging every attempt Shelly made to repack her belongings. "Come on, my serious lawyer wife, make your best argument. Tell me why two married women who still share a legal bond can't share the same bed after so long apart." "Because one of them disappeared and left the other to pick up every shattered piece alone," Shelly shot back. The back and forth continued until Shelly's resolve cracked under exhaustion. "Fine, sleep in here if it means that much to your delusional sense of entitlement. I'll take the couch downstairs." She snatched a pillow and blanket from the bed and stormed out, descending the stairs with heavy footsteps. The living room sofa was luxurious for guests, but far from ideal for her tall frame after a grueling workday. She had just stretched out and closed her eyes when the soft patter of small feet approached. "Mummy, why are you sleeping down here on the couch?" Kim rubbed her sleepy eyes, clutching her beloved stuffed elephant tightly to her chest. Shelly sat up immediately, forcing a warm, reassuring smile onto her face, despite the turmoil inside. "Oh, my love, Mei Pundao is still adjusting after her long trip. She needs the big, comfortable bed tonight to rest properly. Mummy is just having a little adventure camping out here like in the stories. Everything is okay. Go back to bed now." Kim seemed mostly satisfied after a long hug and a kiss on the forehead, though she lingered for an extra moment. Once her daughter's footsteps faded back upstairs, Shelly let out a deep, weary sigh. Pride wouldn't allow her to explain the real reason. She trudged back up to the master bedroom, closing the door behind her with a soft, resigned click. Pundao was already settled under the crisp sheets, scrolling through her phone with the bedside lamp casting a soft glow. She looked up with a victorious little grin. "Wise decision. There's plenty of room for both of us." "Shut up and stay strictly on your own side of the bed," Shelly muttered curtly. She turned off the lamp, plunging the room into darkness, and climbed in fully clothed. She turned her back firmly toward Pundao, facing the wall like an impenetrable barrier. The room fell into heavy silence, broken only by the steady hum of the air conditioner. Minutes stretched into what felt like hours. Then Pundao's voice cut through the quiet, low and husky, carrying that old teasing lilt that had always undone Shelly in the past. "You know, I remember exactly how things used to be between us. I used to be able to make you forget the entire world every single night. The way you'd moan my name, the way your body responded to every touch. Remember begging me not to stop? Are you becoming impotent now, wife? Or are you just terrified that you might still like it too much if I tried?" Shelly's entire body tensed, a rush of unwanted heat flooding her face and spreading lower. Vivid memories flooded her mind unbidden. Tangled sheets, Pundao's skilled hands exploring her, the perfect way their bodies had always fit together in passion and love. She clenched her jaw so tightly it hurt. "Go to sleep, Pundao, I mean it." Pundao let out a soft, knowing chuckle in the darkness. "You're lost tonight, but I've waited 4 long years. I can be patient a little longer." Shelly didn't dignify that with a response. She lay rigid, counting her breaths and willing her racing heart to slow until sheer exhaustion finally dragged her into a restless sleep. The next morning, Shelly left for the office even earlier than usual, kissing Kim goodbye at the door and deliberately avoiding any interaction with Pundao. In the kitchen, once the front door had closed firmly behind their daughter-in-law, Wing poured fresh coffee for Pundao while Ming joined them at the table. "We need a solid plan," Ming said in his gruff, no-nonsense tone, stirring sugar into his cup. Shelly has always been incredibly stubborn. It's what makes her an excellent lawyer, but it's also keeping her from seeing what's right in front of her. Deep down, she still cares. We all see it. Wing nodded in agreement, her eyes soft with maternal warmth. "Kim desperately needs both of her mothers united. We'll help you, Pundao. Tonight we'll arrange a romantic dinner. Your father and I will take care of Kim and coordinate with the nanny. You focus on setting the table beautifully, lighting candles, and preparing Shelly's favorite dishes. Remind her of the love that's still there." Pundao smiled gratefully, pulling both of them into a heartfelt hug. "Thank you both. Truly. After everything I put her through by leaving so suddenly, I don't deserve your kindness and support. You were trying to protect them in your own misguided way," Ming replied, patting her back. "Now it's time to make it right. We're family." They spent much of the day conspiring together. Pundao ventured out to shop for the finest ingredients, fresh seafood, aromatic herbs, chilies for the spicy tom yum soup that Shelly secretly adored despite her refined image, and other favorites from their shared past. Back home, Koi, Pundao's mother, and Thought, her brother, who were staying temporarily nearby to offer support, called frequently. Thought couldn't resist teasing his sister over the phone. "Don't screw this up, sis. Shelly is way out of your league with her fancy lawyer life. You better make her knees weak again like the old days or I'll never let you live it down." By evening, the villa was transformed. The dining table was set intimately for 2 with fine china, fresh flowers, and flickering candles. Soft, romantic music played subtly in the background. The house smelled divine, filled with the rich aromas of home-cooked Thai fusion dishes. Kim had been tucked into bed early, thrilled by her grandparents' promise of a special mummy night with extra stories the next day. Shelly arrived home later than planned, briefcase in hand, loosening the top button of her blouse as she climbed the front steps. To her mild surprise, Prim, the persistent neighbor from 2 villas down, was waiting there with a chilled bottle of expensive wine and her usual predatory, confident smile. Prim was tall and stylish, with sharp cheekbones and an unrelenting determination to fill what she saw as the empty wife role in Shelly's life and become Kim's new mummy figure. "Another long day at the firm, counselor?" Prim purred, stepping closer and tilting her head flirtatiously. "You work too hard. I thought we could unwind together with this. And Kim could really use a steady new mummy in her life. I'm wonderful with children, you know." Shelly, drained from the day and still simmering from the previous night's tensions, didn't immediately shut it down. Then the front door swung open. Pundao stepped out onto the porch, still wearing a domestic apron over her clothes, looking every inch the devoted wife reclaiming her territory. Her eyes narrowed dangerously at the intimate scene unfolding on the steps. Irritation sparked into deliberate petty revenge within Shelly. She let a slow, rare smile curve her lips as she leaned slightly toward Prim. "You always seem to know exactly how to make a difficult day feel better, Prim. Maybe we should—" That was the final straw. Pundao exploded into motion. She lunged forward and grabbed Prim firmly by the hair, yanking her backward away from Shelly. "Get your hands and your intentions away from my wife, you shameless flirt. Touch her again and you'll regret it." Prim shrieked in shock and outrage, swinging her arms wildly in retaliation. "Who do you think you are, you crazy woman? Let go of me this instant!" Chaos erupted. The two women tumbled down the wide front steps in a whirlwind of pulled hair, scratches, and flying insults. Pundao, hardened by years of unseen struggles, landed a solid slap across Prim's arm. Prim clawed back viciously, tearing at the shoulder of Pundao's blouse. "Stop this right now!" Shelly rushed down the steps, grabbing at Pundao's arm to pull her away. Ming and Wing hurried out from inside the house, adding their stronger hands to separate the fighting pair. Kim, awakened by the commotion despite her bedtime, peeked out from the doorway and burst into delighted giggles. Her laughter rang out clear and infectious, lighting up her face. "Mei Pundao is fighting for Mummy, just like a superhero in my stories." The neighbors' exterior lights began flicking on one by one, but the physical altercation was quickly quelled. Prim finally stormed off down the driveway, clutching her scalp and hurling curses over her shoulder. "You're both insane. Stay away from me." Once inside, an order had been restored, with Kim calmed, hugged, and returned to bed with soothing promises of more adventures tomorrow. Shelly rounded on Pundao in the living room. Her voice was sharp with fury. "You had absolutely no right to create a scene like that in front of my house. This is my life now, my home. You don't get to play the jealous, possessive wife after abandoning everything 4 years ago." Pundao wiped a small trickle of blood from a scratch on her lip, breathing heavily but standing tall and unrepentant. Her eyes burned with intense emotion. "And you had no right flirting with that woman right on our doorstep, right in front of me. If you're not fucking me anymore, Shelly, then you're not fucking anyone else either. Whores and side pieces are not an option. I am still your wife. Accept it." With that, she turned on her heel and walked purposefully toward the stairs, leaving Shelly standing alone in the living room. Shelly's fists were clenched at her sides, her heart racing wildly with a turbulent mix of lingering anger, a confusing undercurrent of unwanted desire, and the dawning, terrifying realization that Pundao's sudden, forceful return was systematically dismantling every emotional wall she had painstakingly constructed over the past 4 years. Upstairs in the dining area, the carefully prepared romantic dinner sat untouched, the candles burning lower and lower. The fight on the steps had spoken volumes more than any candlelit meal ever could. But the night was far from over, and the battle for their fractured family had only just begun in earnest. Chapter 3. The morning sunlight streamed generously through the tall windows of Shelly's villa, bathing the breakfast nook in a warm, golden glow that highlighted every polished surface of the teak table and silverware. The comforting scents of steaming congee infused with ginger, perfectly grilled sea bass, fresh mango slices, and Wing's signature chili dip filled the air. It was a scene of domestic normalcy that felt painfully fragile after last night's explosive reunion. Shelly sat rigidly at the head of the table, her tall frame clad in a crisp white blouse and tailored navy trousers, tablet open to a demanding stack of corporate merger documents. Her expression remained a fortress of cool professionalism, the precise mask she had perfected over 4 long years of single parenthood and legal dominance. Pundao entered quietly from the guest wing, her presence immediately shifting the atmosphere. Her hair was still damp from the shower, soft waves framing her face, and she wore a simple fitted tank top and shorts that accentuated the subtle changes in her body, leaner, more resilient. She carried 2 plates with care, placing one beside Shelly's files. Grilled fish, fragrant rice, and that familiar chili dip arranged just how Shelly liked it. "Good morning, love," Pundao said, her voice low and warm with that lingering Australian accent. Her fingers deliberately brushed Shelly's wrist as she withdrew, a feather-light touch charged with intent. "You've always tackled those endless case files better on a full stomach. Some things never change." Shelly kept her eyes fixed on the tablet, refusing to acknowledge the spark that simple contact ignited. Her reply was flat, edged with ice. "I'm not hungry this morning, and stop calling me love. It's not appropriate anymore." Pundao refused to be dismissed. She settled into the chair directly across, leaning forward with her chin propped on her hand, eyes sparkling with that familiar playful determination. "You said almost those exact words during our first month sharing this house. Then you cleared both plates and pulled me into kisses that lasted until lunch." Beneath the table, her bare foot found Shelly's ankle, tracing a slow, teasing line up her calf. "I could help you unwind properly today. No work distractions, unless you want the desk again. I remember how much you liked being in control there." Memories flooded Shelly unbidden, the frantic heat of the previous night, the desk creaking, bodies pressed together in raw desperation. She shoved them down with practiced discipline, her jaw tightening. "Flirting won't rewrite history, Pundao. 4 years of complete silence don't disappear just because you show up looking rested and ready to charm. Eat your breakfast or leave me to my work." In the nearby kitchen doorway, Wing watched the interaction with soft, optimistic eyes, while Ming nursed his strong black coffee and scanned the morning paper. The older couple had spoken privately with Shelly at dawn. "She's family, darling," Wing had insisted gently, straightening Shelly's collar. "Kim deserves to see her mothers find their way back. Your father and I will help however we can." Ming had added little, but his curt nod carried the weight of his own hidden knowledge, the blackmail, the prison years he had leveraged. For now, they positioned themselves as quiet bridges toward healing. "Pundao, dear," Wing called out cheerfully, bringing a fresh platter of tropical fruits to the table. "You absolutely must join us for the beach getaway this weekend. We reserved the private villa in Hua Hin months ago specifically for Kim's celebration. The infinity pool, the exclusive stretch of sand. It will be wonderful for all of us to reconnect as a family." Kim, sitting at the far end surrounded by crayons and a vibrant drawing of 2 smiling mummies, with a little girl between them holding hands under a bright sun, bounced in her seat with uncontainable excitement. "Yes, May Pundao has to come with us. We're going to build the biggest, strongest sandcastle ever, hunt for the prettiest seashells, and swim until the sun goes down. Please, Mummy, pretty please. I've been waiting so long for her to come home." Shelly's grip on her coffee mug tightened until her knuckles paled. She set it down carefully. "Kim, we already discussed this. The trip was meant for just the 3 of us. You, me, and your grandparents. It's not the right moment to change plans." Tears brimmed instantly in Kim's large, expressive eyes. Her small shoulders slumped, and her voice wavered with heartbreaking sincerity. "But May Pundao is our family. She promised she'd return one day and we'd all be together again. I drew a picture for her every single day, even when I was sad. Why can't she come? Did I do something bad? I missed her so much." The raw vulnerability in her daughter's plea cut straight through Shelly's defenses. She closed her eyes briefly, inhaling deeply to steady herself. Across the table, Pundao remained respectfully quiet, though her gaze held steady hope, one hand subtly hovering as if ready to offer comfort without presuming. "All right," Shelly finally conceded, her voice tight and reluctant, each word measured. "She can join us, but she gets her own separate room at the villa. This trip is entirely for Kim's happiness. Do not push any boundaries, Pundao. I mean it." Kim's tears transformed into pure delight. She scrambled from her chair and launched herself into Pundao's waiting arms. Pundao lifted her high, spinning her gently with a joyful laugh that echoed warmly through the sunlit room. "We're going to make the most wonderful memories, my brave girl. I promise." Pundao's eyes locked with Shelly's over Kim's dark hair, soft yet resolute. "I'll behave myself," she murmured. Mostly. The scenic drive to Hua Hin unfolded over nearly 3 peaceful hours, the highway bordered by vibrant green rice paddies, golden temples, and occasional glimpses of the sparkling sea. Ming and Wing traveled ahead in the lead vehicle with the nanny and additional bags, granting the second SUV a more intimate family dynamic. Kim chattered endlessly from her booster seat, identifying animals, colorful billboards, and passing trucks with boundless energy. Pundao occupied the passenger seat, keeping the mood buoyant by leading silly sing-alongs, Australian nursery rhymes she'd grown up with, cleverly mixed with Thai phrases that sent Kim into fits of giggles. "Your singing is still as off-key as ever," Shelly observed dryly at one point, eyes locked on the winding road. Pundao chuckled, undeterred, and rested her hand briefly on Shelly's thigh. "You used to call it charming, especially when I sang them to you after long showers, both of us dripping wet." She withdrew her hand only after Shelly's pointed glance. "Still charming to you?" "Keep your attention on the passing scenery," Shelly responded coldly, though warmth lingered traitorously where Pundao had touched. The beachfront villa proved an exquisite escape, a spacious contemporary Thai residence featuring a stunning infinity pool merging seamlessly with the Gulf of Thailand's horizon, private wooden steps descending directly to pristine white sand, and 3 generously appointed bedrooms boasting expansive sea-view balconies. Attentive staff had prepped the space with fresh linens, chilled beverages, and a generous welcome basket of local fruits. True to Shelly's conditions, Pundao's room sat at the distant end of the long hallway, well separated from the suite Shelly shared with Kim. By early afternoon, with the sun high and inviting, the beach called to them. Kim dashed ahead, clutching plastic buckets, shovels, and a bright red inflatable ring, tugging Pundao eagerly by the hand. Shelly positioned herself beneath a large striped umbrella in her modest black one-piece swimsuit and protective wide-brimmed hat, a thick legal brief open on her lap that received only token attention. Pundao changed inside and stepped out onto the sand like a force of nature. The skimpy black bikini she wore was breathtakingly minimal, delicate triangles of fabric straining to contain her breasts, thin straps tied precariously at neck and back, and high-cut bottoms that highlighted the elegant length of her legs, the gentle flare of her hips, and the firm, inviting curve of her backside. Time away had honed her figure into something sharper and more resilient, the small, pale scar near her left temple lending an intriguing edge to her natural beauty. She laughed freely as Kim splashed in the shallow waves, bending to help shape their ambitious sandcastle. Shelly's mouth went dry. A fierce wave of jealousy surged through her as groups of beachgoers, Thai locals and foreign tourists, openly turned to admire Pundao. Appreciative murmurs and occasional whistles floated across the breeze. A particularly bold man, tall with sun-bleached hair and a distinct European accent, sauntered closer while Kim and Pundao knelt together building intricate towers and moats. "You're incredible with children," he said smoothly, flashing a charming smile. "Vacationing here with just the little one? I'd be delighted to buy you a drink at the resort bar this evening, perhaps show you some hidden local gems." Shelly stood abruptly, crossing the warm sand with purposeful strides, her presence commanding. "She is not here alone, and she is definitely not interested. Please leave us be." The man raised his hands in surrender and retreated with a polite apology. Shelly immediately retrieved her oversized white button-down shirt from their beach bag and pressed it firmly into Pundao's hands. "Put this on right now." Pundao accepted the garment, one eyebrow arched in quiet amusement as she slipped it over her bikini. The shirt draped loosely, sleeves casually rolled, its hem skimming her mid-thighs and somehow rendering her even more magnetically attractive in its casual intimacy. "I'm going to overheat wearing this under this intense sun, Shelly. It's easily 35 degrees and the rays are relentless." "Wear it anyway," Shelly insisted, her tone brooking no argument, laced with unmistakable possessiveness. "Or we pack up and return to the villa immediately." Pundao fastened a few buttons obediently, then leaned in close enough for Shelly to catch the mingled scents of sunscreen, sea salt, and her own skin. "Jealousy suits you more than you realize, love," she whispered teasingly. You know there's only ever been one person whose gaze I crave on me like this. Only you. Shelly pivoted sharply and returned to her shaded spot, pulse racing despite her outward composure. The afternoon unfolded richly. Kim's infectious laughter as they fortified the sandcastle with intricate details, collected shimmering seashells along the tide line, and splashed playfully in the gentle waves. Pundao remained covered by the shirt, but persisted with subtle, affectionate flirtations, offering to massage sunscreen onto Shelly's shoulders with the innocent excuse of preventing burns for old time's sake, sharing refreshing sips from a chilled young coconut while holding eye contact a moment too long, and quietly reminiscing about earlier beach vacations they had shared as a couple. Shelly maintained her aloof demeanor, responding in curt monosyllables, even as her parents facilitated light-hearted family games and recounted cherished anecdotes around a relaxed beachside picnic spread. As twilight painted the sky in vibrant hues of orange, pink, and deepening indigo, dinner on the villa's breezy terrace was filled with lively conversation. Ming and Wing skillfully guided topics toward positive shared history. Do you recall that chaotic evening when you two attempted an Australian-style barbecue? Wing reminisced with fond laughter, refilling everyone's glasses generously. Pundao nearly set the entire outdoor kitchen ablaze, yet the two of you laughed until tears streamed down your faces. Pundao smiled warmly across the table, her foot once again finding Shelly's beneath it in a gentle nudge. Some risks, and some people, are always worth the potential burn. Shelly withdrew her foot pointedly. Please pass the rice. Later that evening, Kim's eagerly anticipated sleepover with her playgroup friend at a neighboring villa proceeded smoothly. After warm hugs and enthusiastic kisses at the drop-off point, "I love you both so very much, can't wait to tell you all about it tomorrow," the adults returned to the tranquil, now child-free villa grounds. Shelly changed into a flowing lightweight sundress and sought solitude at the resort's open-air beach bar. Glass after glass of smooth whiskey slid down her throat, first, second, then a third, each sip easing the tangled knot of lingering anger, deep-seated betrayal, and insistent, unwelcome desire that Pundao's reappearance constantly provoked. Pundao located her roughly an hour later, slipping gracefully onto the stool beside her in a simple, elegant sundress. Drinking by yourself out here isn't the healthiest way to process things. Neither was you vanishing for 4 years without explanation, Shelly shot back, her voice roughened by emotion and alcohol. Silence stretched between them until Shelly's words finally broke free. You returned solely to torture me. You cannot possibly understand the hell those years inflicted. Kim sobbing for you night after night for months on end, the pitying stares and whispered gossip from friends, colleagues, even strangers. Having to craft gentle explanations for a confused toddler about why her other May disappeared in the middle of the night. Forging ahead alone while tormented by questions. Were you dead? Happy with someone new? Simply indifferent? And here you are now, flirting shamelessly, parading in that skimpy bikini as if we can seamlessly resume what was shattered. Tears glistened in Pundao's warm brown eyes. She set her untouched drink aside. If being near me inflicts this level of pain on you, I'll depart first thing tomorrow. I'll coordinate proper structured visits with Kim through your parents, respectful and on your terms. I never intended to wound you further. I convinced myself that permanent distance was the only way to shield you and Kim from my burdens, from the shame and complications. Clearly, I was mistaken. I am deeply sorry, Shelly. She rose unsteadily, voice fracturing with emotion, and began to walk away. Shelly's hand darted out, fingers encircling Pundao's wrist with firm, undeniable strength. Don't you dare leave again. The return along the moonlit private beach path crackled with unspoken tension. The villa stood dark and invitingly empty with Kim away for the night. Shelly guided Pundao down onto the cool, yielding sand just beyond the pool's soft illumination, concealed by graceful palm fronds and the rhythmic hush of the ocean. You will not abandon me a second time, Shelly growled fiercely, pressing Pundao onto her back against the sand. Her hands moved with urgent purpose. unbuttoning and discarding the shirt, untying the bikini top to expose soft, responsive skin to the night breeze. Shelly's mouth claimed one breast hungrily, sucking and nipping at the hardened nipple while her fingers teased and rolled the other. Pundao arched sharply, a throaty moan escaping as her hands fisted in Shelly's hair. "Shelly." "Oh God, yes." Shelly tugged the bikini bottoms down Pundao's legs and cast them aside. She hiked up her own sundress and pulled it off entirely, bare skin meeting bare skin. Her fingers delved between Pundao's thighs, encountering abundant wetness. 2 fingers plunged deep inside, curling precisely against that sensitive inner ridge, while her thumb applied firm, circling pressure to the swollen clit. Pundao cried out, hips bucking wildly to meet each thrust. "Fuck! Shelly, please!" Shelly added a 3rd finger, stretching her fully, driving in and out with relentless rhythm as obscene, wet sounds blended with the crashing waves. She captured Pundao's mouth in a devouring kiss, tongues tangling, teeth grazing lips. Pundao shattered powerfully, walls contracting rhythmically around Shelly's fingers, her entire body trembling through intense waves of ecstasy. Yet Shelly pressed onward. She withdrew her hand, repositioned herself between Pundao's parted thighs, and aligned their soaked, heated pussies together. The initial slide was exquisite, slick folds gliding, engorged clits rubbing directly with every forceful roll and snap of Shelly's hips. She fucked her with unbridled intensity, hips pumping hard and deep, bodies slapping wetly together amid the sand. 4 years without this, Shelly panted hotly against Pundao's neck, biting down possessively to mark her skin. "Hating you every day, craving you every night." Pundao's legs wrapped tightly around Shelly's waist, heels pressing urgently into her back. "Take everything. Take me. I'm yours." Their pace escalated into a frantic, primal rhythm, shared gasps and moans rising, arousal coating thighs and dripping onto the sand below. Pundao climaxed again with a sharp, keening cry, her clit pulsing forcefully against Shelly's. The overwhelming sensation hurled Shelly into her own powerful release moments later. She ground down through stuttering, forceful movements, a deep guttural groan escaping as pleasure ripped through her core. Their combined releases mingled messily, warm and claiming. They remained entwined for a long while afterward, breaths gradually slowing, limbs heavy with satisfaction beneath the starlit sky. Shelly held Pundao close, the sharp edges of her anger temporarily blunted by exhaustion and lingering emotion. Dawn arrived with gentle pastel hues. Shelly stirred first, carefully extracting herself from Pundao's warm, sleeping embrace. She showered thoroughly, dressed in her signature composed professional style, and was seated on the villa terrace with strong coffee and the morning newspaper when Pundao eventually emerged, looking delightfully rumpled and cautiously hopeful. "About what happened between us on the beach last night?" Pundao started quietly, searching Shelly's face. "Nothing of significance happened," Shelly declared with cool indifference, turning a page of the paper without meeting her eyes. "Kim will be returning shortly. Maintain normalcy around her, as we agreed." Pundao's features showed a brief flash of hurt, but she steadied herself with a small, quietly determined smile. "As you say, love, though we both understand the truth of what we shared." Shelly took a measured sip of her coffee, the protective walls encasing her heart creaking under pressure but holding for now. The beach trip stretched ahead with several days remaining, and Pundao's persistent return continued to erode the carefully constructed barriers between them, one wave at a time. Chapter 4. The soft hues of dawn painted the master bedroom in delicate shades of gold and rose, slipping through the heavy curtains that Shelly had drawn the night before in a vain attempt to shut out the world. After their passionate encounter on the beach, the waves crashing in rhythm with their bodies, Pundao's cries mingling with the sea, Shelly had fallen into a rare, deep sleep with her ex-wife curled warmly against her. For the first time in 4 long years, the emptiness in the bed hadn't haunted her. A familiar, delicious heat between her thighs coaxed her awake. Pundao's mouth moved with slow, devoted precision, lips sealed tight around her most sensitive flesh, tongue swirling and flicking in all the ways that had always driven Shelly wild. A low, involuntary moan escaped Shelly's throat as her hips jerked upward. Her hand instinctively found Pundao's thick, dark hair, fingers gripping firmly, holding her exactly where she was needed most. Pundao hummed with pleasure, the vibration sending jolts of ecstasy through Shelly's core. She worked her with expert familiarity, sucking and licking gently, then more insistently, one hand caressing Shelly's inner thigh. The pleasure built fast and intense, a tight coil winding in Shelly's belly. Her breath came in sharp pants, thighs trembling around Pundao's shoulders. With a guttural cry, Shelly climaxed hard, holding Pundao's head in place through every powerful wave until the sensations ebbed, leaving her boneless and gasping. Clarity returned like a cold splash of water. Shelly pushed Pundao away abruptly and sat up against the headboard, pulling the sheet up over her chest. Her heart still raced, but anger quickly overshadowed the afterglow. "What the hell do you think you're doing, Pundao? We are not a couple. You cannot just wake me up like this." Pundao sat back on her heels, lips shiny and swollen, cheeks flushed. She looked breathtakingly beautiful and far too pleased with herself. "Good morning, wife," she purred, wiping her mouth with the back of her hand. "You always used to love morning head. I know you wake up tense and horny from all that lawyer stress. I was just being nice, helping you relax so you could face the day. Like old times." Shelly's jaw tightened. The room was thick with the intimate scent of their mingled arousal, Pundao's citrus shampoo, and the faint saltiness from the beach still clinging to their skin. Memories flooded her, lazy weekend mornings years ago, laughter turning to moans, Kim's eventual cries pulling them reluctantly from bed. "We are not married in any way that matters anymore. You left me, left us, when Kim was just 1 year old. No explanation, no calls, nothing. You don't get to act like everything's fine now." Pundao crawled up the bed with feline grace, straddling Shelly's lap. Her naked body pressed warmly against Shelly's, breasts brushing tantalizingly close. "Technically, we never divorced. I checked the records before I showed up with my suitcase. No papers filed. And after last night on the beach, the way you took me so passionately, you still want me. Admit it." Shelly grabbed Pundao's wrists, pinning them away from her body. Her voice turned icy, laced with the sharp edge she used in courtrooms. "I'm only allowing you to stay in this house for Kim's sake. Our daughter has been missing her mama Dao desperately. She deserves stability. But don't confuse my tolerance with desire or forgiveness. If you want to act like a slut, throwing yourself at me every chance you get, then go right ahead. Just don't expect me to treat you like my wife. You're a guest here, nothing more." The words cut deep. Pundao's playful spark died instantly. Hurt flooded her eyes, followed by blazing anger. Tears shimmered, but refused to fall. "How dare you?" she whispered brokenly. Her hand wrenched free, and she delivered a stinging slap across Shelly's cheek with surprising force. The sharp crack echoed in the room. Shelly's head snapped to the side, pain blooming hot on her skin. "Don't you ever call me a slut again," Pundao hissed, voice shaking with barely contained emotion. She climbed off the bed quickly, snatching a silk robe from the chair and wrapping it tightly around herself. "You fucked me on the beach like I was everything to you, held me close afterward, and now this? I was trying to reconnect, to take care of you the way I always did. But if that's how little you respect me after everything I've been through—" Her voice cracked. "I need to get out of here before I say something I regret." Pundao fled the room, slamming the door so hard the frame rattled and a picture on the wall tilted. Shelly sat motionless, cheek throbbing, a heavy wave of regret crashing over her. The cruel label tasted bitter on her tongue now. She touched the reddened skin and sighed deeply. Why did she always lash out when vulnerability threatened her carefully built walls? Downstairs, the kitchen was filled with the comforting aromas of morning, steaming congee, fresh mango slices, and brewing coffee. Kim sat at the table in her bright yellow pajamas, legs swinging as she scribbled colorful drawings. Ming read the newspaper with his usual focused expression, while Wing bustled about, humming an old Thai lullaby. "Mummy!" Kim squealed, leaping down to wrap her small arms around Shelly's legs. "Good morning. Mama Dao promised special frog pancakes today with chocolate chip smiles and everything. Where is she? We were going to cook together." Shelly forced a warm smile, lifting her daughter onto her hip and kissing her forehead. Kim's innocent excitement pierced her heart. "Mama Dao had an early errand this morning, my love. She'll join us later, okay? Let's have some fruit and toast for now." Kim's face crumpled with disappointment. "But she said she's staying with us forever now, like a real mummy and mama family. I want her hugs." Wing set a bowl down with a meaningful thud, eyeing Shelly sharply. "Pundao left shortly after breakfast prep. She looked devastated, Shelly. Whatever fight you had upstairs, it's hurting more than just the two of you. Your father and I have been supporting her because we believe in this family. Kim needs both her mothers." Ming lowered his paper, his gaze steady and authoritative. "That girl has endured more than you know. Blackmail or not, don't let stubborn pride ruin what's been given back to you. Fix it, daughter." Shelly swallowed hard, setting Kim down gently. "It's complicated right now. I have important meetings today. Be good for Grandma and Grandpa, Kim." She hugged her daughter tightly once more, inhaling the sweet baby shampoo scent, then left for the office with a heavy heart. At the law firm, Shelly threw herself into work with fierce determination. She led a tense strategy session on a high-stakes corporate merger, dissecting contracts line by line. During a deposition prep, her mind drifted repeatedly to Pundao's hurt expression that morning. In quiet moments between calls, flashbacks assaulted her, their passionate beach reunion, Pundao's playful persistence since returning with her suitcase, the way Kim's eyes lit up around her other mother. By late afternoon, guilt had settled like lead in her stomach. She sent a single text, "We should talk when I get home." But silence was the only reply. What if Pundao had truly left this time? The house felt eerily quiet when Shelly returned that evening. Kim was drawing at the coffee table, but there was no lively energy from the kitchen or garden. "Still no sign of her," Wing reported softly. "She took a small bag, said she needed space to think." Shelly spent the next 2 hours fully present with Kim, building towering block fortresses, acting out silly voices in storybooks about adventurous families, and baking cookies together. Yet every time Kim asked, "When is Mama Dao coming home?" "I miss her." The guilt twisted sharper. After tucking her daughter in with extra kisses and a promise of better days, Shelly poured a glass of red wine and stared out the window, wrestling with her emotions. Her phone shattered the silence. It was Nisa. "Shelly, get to the Orchid Lounge immediately. Pundao is there, heavily intoxicated. Some aggressive guy is bothering her badly, and she's been crying about you." Adrenaline surged. Shelly grabbed her keys and drove through the city streets, jaw set. The Orchid Lounge hummed with sultry jazz, dim amber lighting, and the buzz of conversations. Shelly pushed through clusters of patrons, her eyes locking onto Pundao at the bar. Her wife looked vulnerable in a fitted black dress, hair tousled, cheeks tear-streaked, a nearly empty glass before her. A large, intoxicated man loomed over her, hand gripping her arm. "Come on, baby. Forget her. I'll treat you right tonight." Pundao slurred weakly. "Stop. I don't want this." Shelly's vision narrowed with protective rage. She stormed over and yanked the man back forcefully. "Get your hands off my wife right now." The man turned belligerently. "Who the fuck are you? She's fair game." A heated exchange escalated quickly. When he shoved Shelly, she retaliated with a precise punch to the jaw, years of training evident. He swung back, grazing her shoulder, but Shelly countered with a solid hit to his gut. Onlookers gasped and backed away as glasses shattered. Security intervened swiftly, hauling the bleeding, cursing man outside. Pundao blinked up at her blearily. "Shelly? Why save me just to hurt me later? Call me a whore again?" "You're drunk and coming home," Shelly replied, voice firm yet gentle. She paid the tab and lifted Pundao into her arms, bridal style, ignoring half-hearted protests. "Put me down! I won't go with someone who sees me as disposable." The drive was quiet, Pundao dozing fitfully. Shelly's mind churned with regret and questions. In the moonlit garden, fairy lights twinkling among flowers and Kim's sandbox, Pundao pulled away as soon as her feet touched the path. The cool night air carried the sweet scent of night-blooming jasmine. "Why did you come for me?" she demanded, voice breaking with exhaustion and alcohol. "To drag your slut back home? To use my body when you're angry or turned on and then throw me away like yesterday's news when morning comes? I can't keep letting you break me, Shelly." Shelly stepped closer, her own walls crumbling under the weight of 4 years of grief. The garden felt intimate, almost sacred, with the soft glow illuminating Pundao's tear-streaked face. "Because despite everything I tell myself, I still care about you. Deeply. Even when I try to push you away to protect myself. Tell me the truth, Pundao. Why did you leave us? Kim was just a baby. I was drowning, working endless hours as a lawyer, relying on my parents and the nanny, coming home to an empty side of the bed every night. I replayed every fight, every moment, wondering what I did wrong to make you vanish without a trace. Was there someone else in Australia? Did the pressure of raising a child with me become too much?" Pundao paced the stone path, her black dress catching on a rose bush and tearing slightly at the hem. She ran trembling hands through her hair. "The truth? It's worse than anything you imagined." Her voice rose, raw and filled with years of suppressed pain. "I was framed for the murder of my roommate right after Kim turned 1. The evidence was stacked perfectly against me. My fingerprints on the weapon, my DNA at the scene, security footage of us arguing violently just days before. I didn't do it. Someone set me up, but fighting the system from inside an Australian prison took everything I had. I chose to leave without explanation because I believed I'd never get out. I refused to let you and our beautiful daughter live with the shame and uncertainty of waiting for a convicted murderer. I wanted Kim to grow up proud, with you and your parents' support, without that darkness hanging over her head. Your father Ming somehow found out. He tracked me down and blackmailed me into staying silent at first. He said it was to protect you, the family name, and Kim's future. By the time the real killer was caught, I was proven innocent and released. I thought it was too late, that you'd hate me forever, that you'd found someone stable, like that pushy neighbor Prim who keeps trying to play mummy to Kim." Pundao sank onto the wooden garden bench, shoulders shaking with heavy sobs. "But every photo of Kim I saw online, every story from mutual friends about how much she missed her other mother, it broke me. I came back because I love you both more than my own life, even if you see me as worthless now." The revelation struck Shelly like a physical force. She dropped to her knees right there on the cool stone in front of the bench, taking Pundao's cold hands in her own warmer ones. Tears stung her eyes for the first time in years. Prison. 4 years of hell, and my own father knew and said nothing. "I'm so incredibly sorry, my love. I assumed abandonment and betrayal because it was easier than hoping for something I thought I'd never have again. I love you, Pundao. I never stopped loving you, even when I built these walls to survive without you. Please forgive me for the horrible things I said this morning. You are not a slut. You are the mother of my child, the love of my life, and the strongest woman I know." Pundao looked down at her, eyes searching desperately through tears. "Do you mean that, or is this just guilt talking?" Shelly rose slightly, cupping Pundao's face with both hands, thumbs gently wiping away tears. "I mean every word. No more coldness, no more pushing you away. We'll face the past together. Your time in prison, my father's interference, everything. For Kim, for us." Their foreheads pressed together. The kiss started tentative and salty with tears, then deepened into something hungry and healing. Pundao's hands fisted in Shelly's shirt as Shelly pulled her closer. They clung to each other as if afraid the other might disappear again. The passion built slowly at first. Shelly kissed along Pundao's jaw, down her neck, sucking lightly on the pulse point that always made her shiver. Pundao moaned softly, fingers threading through Shelly's hair. They made their way inside the house, shedding clothes in a heated trail down the hallway, dress, blouse, bra, pants, leaving a path of fabric like breadcrumbs to their reconnection. In the master bedroom, under the soft glow of the bedside lamp, Shelly laid Pundao down on the bed with reverence. She took her time, worshipping every inch of skin she had missed for so long. Kisses trailed from collarbone to breasts, where she lavished attention on sensitive nipples until Pundao arched and gasped. Lower still, Shelly settled between her thighs, tongue exploring folds with slow, deliberate strokes. Pundao's hips bucked, hands gripping the sheets as she whispered Shelly's name like a prayer. Shelly brought her to the edge twice, teasing and building, before finally letting her crash over with a loud, shuddering cry. Pundao pulled her up desperately for a deep kiss, tasting herself on Shelly's lips. "I need you inside me," she breathed. Shelly obliged, sliding 2 fingers deep into her welcoming heat, curling them just right while her thumb circled Pundao's clit. Their bodies moved in sync, rhythm familiar yet renewed with forgiveness. Pundao's walls clenched around her fingers as another orgasm built. When it hit, Pundao cried out, nails digging into Shelly's back, pulling her impossibly closer. They switched positions, Pundao straddling her, riding with passionate abandon until both reached climax together in a shared wave of pleasure. Exhausted and sated, they collapsed into each other's arms, limbs tangled, hearts beating in unison. Afterward, as their breathing slowed, Pundao traced lazy patterns on Shelly's chest. No more running. No more secrets. Never again, Shelly vowed softly, pressing a kiss to her temple. "We'll talk to my parents in the morning. Explain everything. Thought and Koi will tease us mercilessly when they hear, but we'll face it as a family. Together." Pundao smiled against her skin. Together. Kim slept peacefully down the hall, unaware that her family was finally mending under the same roof. The garden lights twinkled on into the night, silent witnesses to new beginnings and healed hearts. Chapter 5. The garden smelled of night-blooming jasmine and damp earth after the brief evening rain. Moonlight sliced through the leaves, casting long, jagged shadows across the tiled path. Shelly still held Pundao against her chest, arms locked in a grip that was half embrace, half restraint. The words Pundao had just screamed hung in the humid air like smoke that refused to dissipate. "I was in jail." Shelly's heart slammed against her ribs so violently she felt dizzy. Her mind reeled, trying to process the revelation while her body remained frozen in the aftermath of their earlier fight. Pundao's face was streaked with tears, illuminated in silver, her chest heaving with the effort of finally speaking the truth she had buried for years. "What the hell are you talking about?" Shelly demanded, her voice low and dangerous, the same tone she used in court when cross-examining a hostile witness. Pundao pulled back just enough to meet her eyes, though her hands still clutched Shelly's shirt as if afraid she might vanish. "I need to tell you everything," she said, her voice hoarse and trembling. "Not here in the garden like this. Inside. Please. Before I lose whatever courage I have left." Shelly wanted to refuse. She wanted to shake the answers out of her right there on the wet grass, under the indifferent stars. But something in Pundao's exhausted expression, the raw vulnerability she had never seen during their beach trip or the angry confrontations of the past weeks, made her nod curtly. She released her grip slowly, her palm lingering for a second on Pundao's lower back as she steered her toward the house. The touch felt electric, dangerously familiar, stirring memories Shelly had tried so hard to suppress. The main house was eerily quiet. Kim was sound asleep upstairs in her room, guarded by the night nanny. Shelly's parents, Ming and Wing, had retired to the guest house earlier after their meddling dinner plans had gone sideways. The living room lights were still on, casting a warm glow over the expensive furniture Shelly had chosen years ago when they first built this life together. Now it all felt like a stage set for a reckoning. They sat on the long sectional sofa, leaving a deliberate foot of space between them. Pundao curled her legs beneath her, looking smaller and more fragile than the bold woman who had barged back into their lives with a suitcase. Shelly waited, arms crossed tightly over her chest, jaw clenched so hard it ached. "Start from the beginning," Shelly ordered, "and don't leave anything out." Pundao took a deep, shaky breath, her fingers twisting in her lap. She stared at the floor for a long moment before speaking. "I grew up in Australia, mostly Melbourne. My family moved there when I was 7. My parents wanted better opportunities. Life was normal, I guess, until university. I had a roommate named Anna. We became close, really close. She was my best friend, and for a while I thought maybe more, but that was before you. One night I came home late from a study group and found her stabbed. Blood everywhere. The scene was a nightmare. My fingerprints were all over the apartment, obviously, but the police found more. Clothes with her blood that I didn't remember seeing, inconsistencies in my timeline. Someone had set me up perfectly. The media ate it up. University student murders roommate in jealous rage. They dragged my sexuality into it, called it a lover's quarrel. I was arrested within hours. Pundao's voice cracked, but she forced herself to continue, eyes distant as if reliving the horror. I was terrified. You and I had only been married a short time. Kim had just turned 1. She was starting to walk, saying her first words. I couldn't drag you into that mess. The trial looked hopeless. So I made a choice. I ran, changed my name, used every shady contact I could find, and fled to Thailand. I started a new life as Pundao. I thought if I disappeared cleanly, without explanation, you and Kim could move on. Have a life without the shame of being tied to a murderer, without waiting for someone who might rot in prison forever. Shelly's hands clenched into fists on her knees until her knuckles turned white. A storm of emotions crashed through her. Rage, betrayal, a deep, aching sorrow. You left me, she whispered, the words cutting like glass. You left our daughter without a word. Do you have any idea what that did to us? To me? I know, Pundao replied, tears spilling freely now. God, I know. I thought it was the right thing. The only thing. I was young, scared, and convinced I was protecting you both. Then your father found me. Shelly's head snapped up sharply. My father? Ming, Pundao confirmed with a bitter nod. He tracked me down in Thailand just a few months after I left. He had private investigators on it. He knew about the murder charges back in Australia. He confronted me in a small cafe in Bangkok, threatened to expose everything unless I stayed away for good. He said you deserved better than a criminal, that Kim deserved a stable life without my shadow hanging over her. He even offered me money to sign divorce papers and disappear permanently. I refused the money, but I let him believe I'd stay gone. I thought it was better for all of you. The weight of the betrayal settled heavily on Shelly's shoulders. She stood up abruptly and began pacing the length of the living room, her bare feet silent on the cool marble. Her mind raced through memories, her father's quiet support after Pundao's disappearance, his subtle suggestions that she move on, date again. It all made horrifying sense now. Pundao watched her pace, continuing softly. The trial dragged on. I spent 4 years in that Australian prison, 4 years of hell, crowded cells, fights, isolation, the constant fear. I fought every single day for my innocence. New evidence finally surfaced. DNA from the real killer, a stalker who had targeted Anna. Motive, opportunity, everything. I was released 6 months ago, fully cleared, no record. But the damage was done. I came back because I couldn't stay away anymore. I never stopped loving you, Shelly, never stopped loving Kim. Every letter I wrote but never sent, every night I cried thinking about what I'd lost. Silence stretched, thick and heavy. Shelly stopped by the large window overlooking the garden, staring out at the spot where they had argued earlier. Her reflection in the glass showed a woman torn between fury and an overwhelming urge to pull Pundao into her arms. You should have told me, Shelly said finally, her voice barely above a whisper. I'm a lawyer. I would have fought for you. I would have waited. We could have faced it together. I know that now, Pundao said, standing up and approaching cautiously. But back then, I believed your father. I believed I was poison. I didn't want you and Kim living with the shame or the waiting. Shelly turned, eyes blazing. Where is he? My father. Pundao hesitated. He and Mum are in the guest house tonight. They were helping me plan that romantic dinner before everything exploded with Prim. Shelly didn't wait. She stormed through the connecting doors toward the guest wing, Pundao hurrying after her. Ming and Wing were still awake, sitting in the cozy living area with herbal tea and a late-night drama on low volume. Ming looked up as Shelly burst in, his expression shifting from mild surprise to deep wariness the moment he saw Pundao behind her. "Dad," Shelly said, her voice cold and commanding, every bit the formidable lawyer. "We need to talk, right now." Wing rose quickly, sensing the tension. "Shelly, darling, what's happened? You look upset." "Ask him," Shelly snapped, pointing directly at Ming. "Ask him why my wife, Kim's mother, spent 4 years in an Australian prison while he blackmailed her into abandoning us." The room fell into stunned silence. Wing's hand flew to her mouth. Ming set his teacup down with a noticeable tremor, his face draining of color. I did what I thought was best for you and Kim," he said slowly, voice heavy with age and regret. "Best?" Shelly's voice rose, echoing off the walls. "You blackmailed her? You threatened to ruin her life here in Thailand if she didn't stay away? You let me believe she chose to abandon us? You watched me grieve, watched Kim ask for her mama every single day for years." Pundao stepped forward, her tone steady despite the fresh tears. "You found out about the charges and used them against me. You said I was dangerous, that Shelly deserved better than someone facing murder charges." Ming rubbed his weathered face with both hands, looking suddenly frail. "The evidence looked damning at the time, the news reports, the police statements. I truly believed you were guilty. I thought I was protecting my daughter and granddaughter from a lifetime of pain." Shelly laughed, a harsh, bitter sound. "She was innocent, framed, and you didn't even give her a chance to explain. You played God with our family." "I know that now," Ming admitted, his shoulders slumping. Regret carved deep lines into his face. "I've seen the official reports since Pundao returned, the exoneration. I was wrong about the murder, deeply wrong. But there was something else that convinced me." Pundao's brow furrowed. "What else?" Ming looked directly at Shelly, hesitant but resolute. "I thought you deserved better because I learned she had cheated on you. Before she left." The accusation landed like a physical blow. Shelly blinked rapidly. "Cheated?" Pundao's eyes widened in raw shock and outrage. "I never cheated on you. Not once. Not ever." Ming sighed, the sound of a man carrying too many burdens. "Prim told me. Your neighbor across the street. She came to me privately a few weeks before Pundao disappeared. Said she saw her with her best friend, Toby, in a car late at night, kissing passionately. Prim thought I should know so I could protect you. She was worried you were being betrayed." Pundao's face flushed deep red with anger. "That is a complete lie. Toby was my best friend, yes. He helped me with the name change, the escape, the logistics when I was desperate. He's gay. He has never been interested in me romantically. We hugged, we talked, but we never kissed. Prim is fabricating this to drive a wedge between us." Shelly's sharp legal mind was already dissecting the claim. She studied her father's face, then turned the full weight of her gaze on the situation. "You took the word of a woman who has been openly hitting on me for years? A neighbor who wants to replace Pundao as Kim's mother? You didn't even ask me. You didn't confront Pundao yourself?" "I was trying to protect you," Ming insisted, though his voice lacked conviction now. "After everything with the murder charges, it felt like confirmation that she wasn't good for you. I'm sorry. I see now how much damage I caused. Kim adores her. You still look at her the way you did on your wedding day. I was wrong about all of it." Shelly stared at him for what felt like an eternity, the betrayal burning in her chest. This was the man who had walked her down the aisle, who had doted on baby Kim, who had been her rock. Yet he had torn their family apart based on lies and assumptions. "Pack your things," she said at last, her voice flat and final. "I want you out of this house by morning. You and Mum can stay at the city condo until I decide how to move forward. I need space from this." Wing gasped softly, tears welling in her eyes, but she placed a supportive hand on Ming's shoulder and nodded. Ming rose slowly, his movements heavy with sorrow. I understand, my daughter. I love you and Kim more than anything. I only ever wanted the best for you both. I hope one day you can forgive an old fool. The best for us was our family whole, Shelly replied coldly. She turned on her heel and left the guest house without another glance. Pundao lingered for a brief second, offering Ming a look that mixed pity and lingering hurt, before following. Back in the main house, Shelly poured 2 glasses of whiskey with unsteady hands. The amber liquid burned going down, but it steadied her nerves. Pundao accepted her glass and sipped slowly, watching Shelly with careful eyes. I swear to you, I never cheated, Pundao repeated firmly. Toby was like a brother. He risked a lot to help me. That's all it ever was. I believe you, Shelly said after a long pause, setting her glass down. The anger toward her father was still raw, but the truth about Pundao felt like a balm on an old wound. But I need to hear Prim admit it to my face. Tonight. I'm done with her games. Pundao nodded without hesitation. Let's end this. They walked across the quiet, tree-lined street to Prim's sleek, modern villa. The lights were still glowing warmly on the ground floor. Shelly rang the doorbell firmly, her posture straight and authoritative. Pundao stood just behind her, arms crossed, radiating quiet fury. Prim opened the door, wearing a luxurious silk robe, her hair cascading loosely over one shoulder. Her face lit up at the sight of Shelly, but the smile died instantly when she registered Pundao's presence. Shelly, what a surprise at this hour. Is everything all right? You look like you've had a rough night. No, everything is not all right. Shelly cut in, her tone sharp. My father told me what you said to him years ago, about Pundao and Toby, about seeing them kissing in a car. Prim's expression flickered, surprise melting into calculated innocence. She leaned casually against the doorframe. I only told him the truth. I saw what I saw. I was looking out for you, Shelly. You deserved to know you were being betrayed. Pundao stepped forward aggressively. What exactly did you see, Prim? Describe it in detail. Prim's eyes narrowed, but she maintained her composure. You and that man, Toby, right? In a dark car parked down the street. Late at night. You were in each other's arms, kissing. It looked intense. I couldn't just stay silent when your wife and child were involved. You're lying through your teeth, Pundao spat. Toby helped me during the darkest time of my life. He's gay and happily partnered. We never kissed, not once. You invented this story to manipulate Ming and worm your way into Shelly's life. Shelly observed every micro-expression. The slight twitch of Prim's lips, the way her gaze darted away, the defensive set of her shoulders. Courtroom instincts screamed liar. Why, Prim? Shelly pressed, stepping closer. Why feed my father these lies? What did you hope to gain by destroying my marriage? Prim's pleasant facade finally cracked. Her voice turned venomous. Because I cared about you, more than she ever did, running off to hide her criminal past. I could give you and Kim a real, stable family. No drama, no prison records, just us. I've been here for you all these years while she played dead. Pundao lunged forward with a growl, but Shelly caught her arm firmly, holding her back. Enough! Prim, stay away from my house, my daughter, and my family. If you spread one more lie or come near us again, I will use every legal resource I have to make your life hell. Consider this your only warning. Prim's face went pale, her mouth opening and closing without sound. Shelly didn't wait for a response. She turned, taking Pundao's hand in a tight, reassuring grip, and they walked back across the street together. Halfway home, under the soft glow of a street lamp, Pundao stopped. Fireflies danced lazily around them in the warm night air. I'm so sorry, Pundao whispered, her voice thick with emotion. For the secrets, for the pain I caused, for letting your father's threats keep me away. I should have fought harder for us from the start. Shelly looked down at her, studying the familiar curve of her lips, the strength in her eyes despite everything. The woman she fell in love with was still there, scarred, but unbroken. You hurt me deeper than anyone ever has, Shelly admitted, her own voice rough with unshed tears. "But I understand the fear that drove you. Even if it was the wrong choice, no more running, no more secrets between us. If we try again, we do it honestly." Pundao's face broke into a tentative, radiant smile. "I promise, on my life, on Kim's happiness." Their kiss started slow and tentative under the lamplight, a gentle press of lips reaffirming connection after years of separation. Then Pundao sighed softly into it, the exact sound that had always unraveled Shelly, and the kiss grew deeper, hungrier. Years of longing poured out as Shelly backed her gently against the garden gate, hands sliding beneath Pundao's shirt to trace warm, familiar skin. Pundao's fingers tangled in Shelly's hair, pulling her closer. When they finally parted, breathless and flushed, Shelly rested her forehead against Pundao's. "Kim is going to be over the moon tomorrow morning." Pundao chuckled softly, the sound light and full of hope. "Our daughter has been matchmaking since the day I showed up with that suitcase. She's smarter than both of us combined." They slipped back into the house hand in hand, the weight of the night's revelation still heavy but no longer crushing. Upstairs, Shelly quietly opened Kim's door and peeked in. The 5-year-old slept peacefully, clutching her favorite stuffed elephant, her small face the perfect blend of both her mothers. Pundao watched from the doorway, eyes glistening with love and gratitude. Later, in the master bedroom that Pundao had boldly claimed weeks earlier, they lay tangled together under the soft sheets. There was no rush for passion tonight. Instead, they shared quiet touches, whispered stories, and healing silences. Pundao recounted more details of prison life, the loneliness, the small kindnesses from fellow inmates, the letters she drafted to Shelly in the dead of night but burned out of fear. Shelly opened up about the sleepless nights after the abandonment, the way she threw herself into work to provide for Kim, the quiet moments when she still reached for Pundao in her sleep. Dawn painted the sky in soft pinks and golds when they finally drifted off, limbs intertwined and hearts tentatively mending. Downstairs, Ming zipped the last suitcase with a heavy heart. He paused at the console table, picking up the framed family photo from their wedding day, Shelly radiant in her suit, Pundao glowing beside her, tiny Kim not yet conceived, but already the center of their dreams. His thumb brushed over Pundao's smiling face. "I hope one day you can both forgive me," he murmured into the empty room. "I only wanted to protect them." With a final, regretful sigh, he closed the front door behind him and walked toward the waiting car, leaving the house that was no longer his sanctuary. Chapter 6. The air inside Shelly's elegant black sedan felt thick with unspoken accusations and lingering pain as they drove toward Prim's house on that fateful afternoon. Shelly's fingers gripped the steering wheel so tightly that her knuckles stood out pale against her skin, her mind a chaotic storm of memories from their fractured past. She recalled the day Pundao had first reappeared with her suitcase, demanding her place in the family, and how their daughter Kim's joy had forced a reluctant coexistence. Now everything hung in the balance once more. In the passenger seat, Pundao sat rigidly upright, her posture exuding quiet strength honed during her years of unjust imprisonment in Australia. Her dark hair framed a face etched with determination, but her eyes betrayed the deep hurt simmering just below the surface. In the back seat, Shelly's father, Ming, fidgeted, the weight of his blackmail and interference from years ago now a heavy burden on his conscience. Wing, his steadfast wife, offered silent support with a gentle hand on his knee, her presence a calming force amid the family's turmoil. Pundao broke the oppressive silence first, her voice carrying the distinctive Australian accent that intensified with her rising emotions. "Prim has inserted herself like a venomous snake into our lives for too long. Her lies about me cheating with Toby nearly ruined everything we had. Today, she will tell the complete truth, or I swear I will make her regret ever setting her sights on our family." Shelly nodded, stealing a quick glance at her wife while navigating the familiar streets. She reached over briefly, her fingers brushing Pundao's in a gesture of solidarity. The touch sent a familiar spark through her, reminding her of their passionate night on the beach during the family vacation, where anger had melted into desire. "We confront this as a united front. No more secrets between us. I'm here, Pundao. We'll get through it together." The car pulled up to Prim's neat suburban home, its white exterior and colorful garden beds presenting a picture of peaceful domesticity that clashed violently with the confrontation about to unfold. Pundao exited the vehicle without hesitation, her steps purposeful as she approached the front door and knocked with firm insistence. When Prim answered, dressed in a luxurious silk robe, with her hair casually pinned and a glass of white wine in hand, her polite smile evaporated instantly upon seeing the group assembled on her doorstep. "What is this? Why have you all come here unannounced?" Prim demanded, her voice wavering as she registered Pundao's intense stare and Shelly's imposing presence. Pundao pushed past her without waiting for an invitation, striding confidently into the brightly lit living room adorned with tasteful artwork and comfortable furnishings. "You know exactly why we're standing in your home, Prim. You deliberately lied to Ming. You claimed you witnessed me kissing Toby, my closest friend, suggesting an affair behind Shelly's back. It was nothing but a calculated fabrication meant to destroy my marriage." Prim retreated several steps, her wine glass trembling in her grip as she tried to maintain composure. "I saw, or at least I thought I saw signs of intimacy. The two of you always seemed overly familiar, laughing and sharing moments that looked suspicious to me." "Enough with your pathetic excuses," Pundao snapped, her voice rising sharply as she advanced further into the room. Her mind flooded with painful flashbacks, the shock of being framed for her roommate's murder back in Australia, the name change and new life in Thailand, the blackmail from Ming that forced her initial departure, and the 4 grueling years spent proving her innocence in prison while staying silent to shield Shelly and young Kim from public shame and endless waiting. You invented the entire story because you harbored obsessive feelings for Shelly. You wanted her for yourself and saw me as an obstacle. Admit the truth right now, or this will escalate beyond your control. Shelly positioned herself firmly beside her wife, drawing on her years of legal experience to deliver a measured yet threatening ultimatum. "Prim, consider this your one and only opportunity to confess everything honestly. If you continue lying, I will use every professional connection, every favor, and every resource at my disposal to dismantle your reputation in this city. Your clients will abandon you, your social circle will ostracize you, and everyone will know you as the jealous manipulator who tried to tear apart a family." Ming stepped forward hesitantly, his usual authoritative demeanor replaced by profound shame. "I trusted your words completely, Prim. They prompted me to blackmail Pundao, to force her away from Shelly and Kim under the misguided belief that I was protecting them from future heartbreak and scandal. The regret has consumed me daily. For the sake of any remaining decency, please reveal the full truth." The combined pressure from the group finally shattered Prim's defenses. She sank heavily onto her plush sofa, placing her wineglass on a side table with shaking hands before burying her face in her palms. Deep, remorseful sobs escaped her as the confession poured out. "You're right. I lied about it all. There was no kiss, no romantic encounter, no evidence whatsoever of infidelity. I created the story from nothing because I've been secretly in love with Shelly for years. I watched from the shadows, hoping for a chance. When Pundao vanished without explanation, I seized the opportunity. I whispered doubts and exaggerated tales to Ming, pushing him to act against her. I fantasized about taking her place, comforting Shelly, becoming Kim's new mother figure, building the life I craved. It was selfish, cruel, and entirely my fault. I'm truly sorry for the pain I caused." A heavy silence descended upon the room as the words sank in. Shelly felt a rush of vindication for Pundao, mixed with profound sadness for the years stolen from them. Pundao exhaled slowly, Allowing the validation to wash over her after so much doubt and isolation, Ming approached Pundao with slow, humble steps, his eyes glistening with unshed tears. Pundao, I stand before you as a man who has made unforgivable errors. I allowed my protective instincts and prejudices to blind me. I thought Shelly deserved a partner unburdened by such a dangerous and complicated history. My blackmail, my threats, they tore your family apart. Can you find it within yourself to forgive this foolish father who believed he knew best? Pundao regarded him steadily for what felt like an eternity, her thoughts drifting to supportive letters from her brother Thought, comforting visits from her mother Koi during imprisonment, and the unwavering love for Kim that had sustained her. I forgive you, Ming. The path to full trust will be long and require consistent effort, but I offer forgiveness today for the sake of our daughter Kim, for Shelly, and for the family we are desperately trying to mend. Promise me you will never interfere in such a destructive manner again. Wing smiled softly through her own emotions, drawing her husband close in a supportive embrace. Thank you, Pundao. Your strength brings hope. We move forward as one family now. As the group began to depart, Prim's voice sliced through the air once more, sharp and venomous with residual bitterness. Enjoy your moment of victory. But remember this, at least I achieved something tangible. While you were imprisoned far away, Shelly sought me out repeatedly. She fucked me in her moments of deepest despair and loneliness. I provided the physical comfort she craved when thoughts of you became unbearable. Pundao whirled around, fury flashing in her eyes. Continue spreading your venom if it eases your guilt, but we both know the truth now. Her gaze shifted to Shelly, however, and the confirmation hit like a physical blow. Shelly's face had gone deathly pale, her eyes wide with terror and overwhelming guilt, her mouth opening and closing without immediate words of denial. The expression spoke volumes. The devastating realization crashed over Pundao with brutal force. Her chest constricted painfully, breath coming in short, ragged gasps as tears blurred her vision. Without another word, she turned and fled the house, running down the pathway to the waiting car. She threw herself inside, slamming the door and locking it before breaking down completely, body racked with deep guttural sobs that echoed years of suppressed suffering. Shelly pursued her frantically, arriving at the car out of breath. "Pundao, please unlock the door. Let me explain everything." Upon returning home, Pundao raced directly to their master bedroom, the same room she had defiantly claimed by moving all her belongings into it shortly after her return, asserting her marital rights. She slammed the door shut and engaged the lock with a decisive click. Shelly reached the door moments later, pounding on it desperately with both fists. "Pundao, open up! I need to speak with you, to make you understand," Shelly pleaded, her voice hoarse and breaking. She leaned her full weight against the wooden barrier, tears streaming down her cheeks. Vivid memories assaulted her, the agonizing emptiness after Pundao's initial disappearance when Kim was just a toddler, the lonely nights wondering what she had done wrong, and the recent passionate encounters that had briefly reignited their spark. What happened with Prim was not love or affection. It was born from profound anger and heartbreak. You vanished without a single word of explanation, leaving me to raise Kim alone, while believing the worst. I was drowning in pain. Prim was conveniently there, offering a momentary distraction from the constant ache. It was purely physical, empty, and meaningless. I swear to you on everything I hold dear that it meant nothing to me emotionally. Inside the locked room, Pundao collapsed onto the large bed they once shared, burying her face in pillows that still carried traces of Shelly's scent. Her sobs were raw and unrelenting. You gave yourself to her. During the very years I endured false imprisonment, fighting to clear my name while protecting your reputation and our daughter's innocence by remaining silent. 4 years of isolation and hardship, and you found solace in the bed of the woman who contributed to my exile? Shelly slid down to the floor, resting her back against the door as she continued pouring out her heart. She spoke of their shared history in detail, the playful provocations Pundao had used to tempt her upon returning, the jealousy Shelly felt seeing men admire Pundao in her skimpy swimsuit at the beach, the intense emotional and physical reconnection that followed. "I will spend the rest of my life atoning if you allow it. Please don't close your heart to me completely. You are my wife, the love of my life, and I cannot bear losing you again." The emotional standoff lasted for hours, with Shelly's voice growing increasingly hoarse until sheer exhaustion claimed her in a fitful sleep against the bedroom door. The next morning brought a new, chilling formality to their interactions. Pundao emerged from the bedroom appearing outwardly composed, though her eyes lacked their usual warmth. She devoted herself to preparing Kim for school with careful attention, selecting a cheerful outfit, gently brushing and styling the little girl's hair, and packing a balanced lunch with loving care. "Mama, why does Mommy look so sad, and why did she sleep on the couch?" Kim inquired innocently while hugging her favorite stuffed animal tightly. "Did you two have another big fight? I want us all to be happy together again." Pundao knelt to her daughter's level, cupping the child's face with infinite tenderness and kissing her forehead. "We are navigating some complicated grown-up feelings right now, my sweet girl. But I promise you that both Mommy and I love you more than anything in this world. You are the light that keeps us strong. We will always be your family." Shelly observed the tender exchange from the hallway, her heart twisting painfully at the contrast between Pundao's warmth toward Kim and the cold wall she had erected between them. Breakfast proceeded in strained politeness. "Could you please pass the milk?" Pundao requested in a formal tone, avoiding direct eye contact. The drive to drop Kim off at school was filled with unbearable silence. Once their daughter was safely inside the building, Shelly pulled the car over to the side of the road. "Pundao, this emotional distance is destroying me. Please, yell at me, cry, express your anger, anything but this complete shutdown." Pundao's response was delivered with icy precision. "Our main focus must remain effective co-parenting for Kim's well-being. That is the full extent of what I can offer right now. You may sleep on the couch indefinitely or seek physical satisfaction with your whore whenever the urge strikes. It holds no concern for me any longer." The harsh words left Shelly reeling. That night, she lay awake for hours on the uncomfortable living room couch, missing the familiar comfort of Pundao's body beside her, her teasing humor, and the sense of completeness their family once possessed. Desperate for guidance, Shelly turned to her parents the following evening while Pundao was away, seeking solace and advice from Koi and Thought's support network. "She has become so distant and formal. I fear I am losing her for good this time. What can I possibly do to bridge this gap?" Wing wrapped her daughter in a warm, maternal hug. "Demonstrate your love through consistent romantic gestures, flowers, thoughtful notes, quality time together. These actions can speak volumes where words fail. Above all, exercise patience and understanding." Ming offered his perspective thoughtfully. "Show her through your behavior that you have truly learned from your mistakes. Consistency is what will rebuild trust." Motivated by their wisdom, Shelly went to great lengths the next day. She returned home bearing an extravagant bouquet featuring Pundao's beloved lilies, intertwined with delicate orchids, arranged by the city's finest florist. A lengthy handwritten letter accompanied the gift, expressing deep remorse, recounting cherished memories from their relationship, and vowing eternal devotion. Pundao examined the beautiful arrangement and read the note carefully before carrying the entire bouquet to the kitchen trash bin and discarding it without ceremony. "Beautiful gestures cannot undo the damage caused by betrayal. Please stop wasting your time and money on these attempts." Though disheartened, Shelly persisted with additional efforts, preparing Pundao's favorite fusion dishes blending Thai and Australian flavors and leaving heartfelt notes in various spots around the house. Each was received with either polite indifference or outright rejection. The climax of their current struggles arrived that weekend at Shelly's cousin's opulent wedding celebration held at a prestigious beachside resort. The venue was breathtaking, featuring elegant pavilions draped in lights, fragrant floral installations, a live orchestra, and stunning ocean views. The guest list included extended family members, business associates, company employees, and members of the local media, making it a high-profile society event. The family attended as a group: Shelly, Pundao, Little Kim, Ming, and Wing. Pundao appeared stunning in a tailored emerald green dress that accentuated her figure perfectly, her hair falling in soft, stylish waves that caught the golden light of the setting sun. She navigated the reception with graceful confidence, engaging in extended conversations, sharing humorous anecdotes with cousins that had tables laughing heartily, discussing professional matters with colleagues while using subtle, engaging gestures, and participating in light, flirtatious exchanges and dances with an attractive female lawyer who clearly found her captivating. Shelly watched the interactions from her position at the open bar, downing several strong drinks in quick succession as waves of jealousy and self-doubt intensified. Each smile, each touch, each dance Pundao shared with others felt like a dagger, amplifying memories of loss and her own past mistakes. When Pundao accepted another close dance, their bodies moving rhythmically under the twinkling lights, Shelly reached her breaking point. She strode purposefully onto the dance floor and firmly grasped Pundao's wrist. "This has gone on long enough. You are coming with me right now." Pundao smoothly extracted herself, maintaining a composed smile for the benefit of watching guests. "I am thoroughly enjoying the evening's celebrations. Return to the bar if you require more alcohol." Whispers spread rapidly among the attendees as phones were discreetly raised. Shelly's voice grew louder and more desperate, carrying across the immediate area. "Tell me what I must do to regain your trust and love. I adore you completely and cannot envision existence without you by my side. You are my devoted wife, the mother of our precious Kim, and the very center of my world." Pundao pivoted to confront her directly, her words ringing out clearly for all nearby to hear. "If your feelings are genuine, demonstrate it unequivocally here and now. Kneel before everyone present, your relatives, your professional colleagues and employees, and the attending media representatives. Beg for my forgiveness. Beg me to return fully to our marital bed and commit to rebuilding our shared life." A wave of audible gasps rippled through the crowd. Thought, observing alongside Koi from a short distance, let out a low whistle of surprise. "She's really pushing the limits here." Kim peered curiously from behind her grandparents, sensing the gravity of the moment. Shelly hesitated for only a fraction of a second, her deep-seated pride clashing violently with the overwhelming love she felt. Then, with deliberate slowness, she lowered herself to her knees on the cool, polished marble flooring, her elegant dress spreading out around her like a dramatic pool. The action drew even more attention, with camera flashes popping and murmurs turning into a mix of shock and entertainment. "Pundao, my beloved wife and partner," Shelly declared, her voice projecting with emotional strength despite the public vulnerability. "I have failed you in the most profound and hurtful manner imaginable. Following your unexplained departure, I allowed grief, anger, and profound loneliness to overwhelm my judgment. I foolishly sought temporary, meaningless comfort in Prim's arms during my darkest hours. That encounter held no emotional depth or lasting significance. It was merely a desperate attempt to numb unbearable pain. You, meanwhile, endured years of unjust imprisonment, fighting to prove your innocence while selflessly protecting my reputation and our daughter's future by choosing silence. I beg you, from the very depths of my soul and with complete humility, to find it in your heart to forgive me. Please return to me fully. Grant me the opportunity to cherish and honor you every single day moving forward, demonstrating my unwavering commitment through both words and consistent actions. I truly cannot and will not continue living without you as the heart of our home and family." Tears flowed openly down Shelly's cheeks as the assembled guests reacted with a blend of scandalized whispers, sympathetic applause, and intrigued fascination from the media contingent. Pundao's carefully maintained composure finally cracked, her eyes shimmering with held-back tears. She extended a gentle hand, assisting Shelly to her feet, before drawing her into a tight, emotionally charged embrace amid the continuing buzz of the crowd. "Not in such a public display for spectacle," Pundao whispered intimately into her ear, her voice thick with conflicting emotions. "But perhaps we can begin trying to heal in private." Later that evening, safely ensconced in their luxurious private hotel suite, while young Kim slept peacefully in the connecting room under the watchful care of Ming and Wing, Pundao stood by the large panoramic window, gazing out at the moonlit ocean waves crashing rhythmically against the shore. Her arms were wrapped tightly around her own torso, as if holding herself together. "You actually went through with kneeling and begging in front of the entire wedding party," she observed softly, a mixture of awe, lingering pain, and reluctant admiration coloring her tone. "I would repeat the act 1,000 times without hesitation," Shelly responded with sincere intensity, moving closer but carefully respecting the invisible boundaries still present between them. "My pride means nothing compared to the possibility of keeping you in my life and in our daughter's life." Pundao turned slowly to face her, her expression a complex mosaic of deep-seated hurt from the betrayal and the enduring love that had survived so many trials. "The pain inflicted by your actions with Prim cuts incredibly deep. Rebuilding complete trust will require considerable time, patience, and tangible proof of change. I cannot pretend it will happen quickly." "I fully understand and accept those terms," Shelly replied, nodding solemnly. "I will remain patient and dedicated, proving my devotion day by day through actions rather than empty promises." Pundao bridged the final gap between them, gently pressing her forehead against Shelly's in a gesture of tentative reconnection. "I promise I will not run away or disappear again. We will work to repair what was broken, slowly and deliberately, for the sake of Kim's happiness, for our own futures, and for the loving family we originally created together." In the quiet intimacy of the suite, their lips met in a soft, exploratory kiss, laden with cautious hope and the promise of gradual healing. Outside, the ocean continued its timeless rhythm, mirroring the persistent yet evolving nature of their relationship. The path ahead remained challenging, filled with necessary conversations, additional gestures of atonement, and time to process wounds. But in this moment, the first authentic strands of reconciliation and renewed commitment began to weave themselves into their shared story. Chapter 7. The bedroom door closed behind them with a soft click that somehow still managed to sound final. Outside, the distant murmur of wedding guests and the occasional flash of phone cameras had finally faded. Inside, the only light came from the bedside lamp Shelly had switched on, casting warm gold across the rumpled sheets and the two women who stood facing each other in the middle of the room. Pundao was still laughing. It started as a quiet chuckle under her breath, then grew until she had to lean against the dresser, one hand pressed to her stomach. Tears of pure amusement gathered at the corners of her eyes. She wiped them away with the back of her wrist and looked at Shelly, who stood rigid near the foot of the bed, jacket still on, hair slightly mussed from the drive home. "You should have seen their faces," Pundao said, voice bright with leftover delight. "Your aunt nearly dropped her champagne. That old partner of yours from the firm. What's his name, the one with the comb-over? Looked like he was about to have a stroke. And the media people? Already posting. Prominent lawyer Shelly Wang on her knees for her returned wife at cousin's wedding? It's everywhere. My phone has been buzzing nonstop." Shelly's cheeks burned. She had known the moment she lowered herself onto the polished marble of the hotel ballroom that the story would travel. She had done it anyway. The memory of Pundao's cool voice instructing her, the circle of shocked relatives and colleagues, the way Kim had clapped from her seat beside Wing and Ming, none of it had stopped her. Love, or desperation, or both, had driven her down. Pundao pushed off the dresser and crossed the space between them. She stopped close enough that Shelly could smell the faint citrus of her perfume, mixed with the salt air still clinging to her skin from the outdoor ceremony. Her eyes were sharp now, the laughter still present but edged with something harder. "Listen carefully, Shelly," she said. "If you ever put those fingers of yours in another woman again, Prim, some random at a bar, anyone, I will cut your hand off and throw it to the dogs. Do you understand me?" Shelly's breath caught. The threat was delivered lightly, almost playfully, but the steel underneath it was unmistakable. She nodded once. "I understand." Pundao's mouth curved. "Good." She reached up and brushed a strand of hair from Shelly's cheek, the gesture almost tender. "You looked ridiculous on your knees. Beautiful, but ridiculous. I almost felt sorry for you." Shelly caught her wrist before she could pull away. "Then reward me." Pundao raised an eyebrow. "Reward you?" "For what I did. For begging in front of everyone. For choosing you publicly finally. I want you. Tonight. Now." Pundao's laugh this time was softer, almost fond, but she shook her head. She freed her wrist with an easy twist and stepped back. "No. You don't get to fuck your way out of this, lawyer. You slept with Prim while I was rotting in a cell for a crime I didn't commit. You let her touch you. You let her think she could replace me. Forgiveness is not free, and it is not paid in orgasms, no matter how good you are with those fingers." Shelly's jaw tightened. "I told you why. I was angry. I was broken. I thought you were gone forever. And I told you I needed time." Pundao's voice stayed even. "You will earn it. Properly. Not with one public kneel and a hard-on." She turned toward the bathroom, already unbuttoning her dress. "I'm taking a shower. Don't wait up if you're planning to sleep on the couch again." Shelly stood alone in the middle of the bedroom for a long minute after the water started running. The ache between her legs was sharp and insistent. She wanted to follow Pundao into the steam, press her against the tiles, make her moan the way she used to. Instead, she stripped out of her suit, pulled on an old t-shirt, and climbed into their bed alone. When Pundao finally emerged, hair damp and body wrapped in one of Shelly's oversized shirts, she slid under the covers on the far side and turned her back without a word. Shelly stared at the ceiling until sleep finally claimed her. 2 days later, they were in the car again, this time heading south toward a private beach house Shelly had booked on short notice. Kim had been delighted when told she would stay with Ming and Wing for the weekend. "Grandpa promised ice cream and cartoons, Mummy," and had waved them off with enthusiastic kisses for both mothers. Pundao had kissed the top of the little girl's head longer than necessary, eyes soft in a way that still made Shelly's chest tighten. The drive was quiet at first. Pundao scrolled through her phone, occasionally snorting at another social media post about the wedding. Shelly kept her eyes on the road, one hand on the wheel, the other resting on the gear shift. After an hour, she reached across and laid her fingers over Pundao's knee. Pundao glanced down but did not move away. "I meant what I said," Shelly murmured. "I'm not going anywhere. Not again. Whatever you need from me to believe that, I'll do it." Pundao's hand settled over hers, warm and dry. "We'll see." The beach house sat on a low cliff above a crescent of white sand, all glass and pale wood, with a wide balcony that overlooked the private pool and the sea beyond. They arrived in the late afternoon. The sun was already sliding toward the horizon, painting the water gold and rose. Pundao stepped out of the car, stretched, and breathed in the salt air with visible pleasure. "Better than a prison cell," she said lightly. Shelly's throat closed for a second. She carried the bags inside without answering. They unpacked in the main bedroom, the one with the balcony doors already open to the evening breeze. Pundao claimed the left side of the bed without discussion. Shelly watched her hang a few dresses and a handful of swimsuits, none of them modest, and felt the familiar mix of heat and possessiveness coil low in her stomach. Dinner was simple: grilled fish, rice, a bottle of white wine Pundao opened without asking. They ate on the balcony as the sky darkened. Conversation stayed careful. Shelly talked about a case she was preparing to hand off so she could take more time at home. Pundao mentioned that Thought had texted twice already asking if she had made Shelly crawl yet, and that Koi had sent a photo of Kim covered in ice cream. The easy domesticity of it made something in Shelly's chest loosen, even as the unresolved tension between them hummed under every word. After the plates were cleared, Pundao stood and stretched again. "I'm going for a walk on the beach. Coming?" Shelly followed. The sand was still warm under their bare feet. They walked near the waterline, waves foaming around their ankles. Pundao's dress fluttered around her thighs. Shelly kept stealing glances at the long line of her legs, the way the fabric clung when the wind pressed it against her body. At one point, a lone figure approached from the opposite direction, a man in his 30s, dark hair, easy smile. He slowed as he reached them. "Beautiful night," he said, eyes on Pundao. "You two staying at the Cliff House?" Pundao smiled politely. "We are. I'm at the place next door. Name's Marco. If you need anything, recommendations for restaurants, a second for sunset drinks, just shout." Shelly stepped slightly in front of Pundao. "We're fine. Thanks." Marco's gaze flicked to her, then back to Pundao with open appreciation. "Offer stands, especially for you." He gave a small salute and continued down the beach. Pundao laughed under her breath once he was out of earshot. "Jealous already? We just got here." He was staring at your legs like they were on the menu. "They are nice legs." Pundao bumped her shoulder lightly against Shelly's. "You used to say so every morning when I got out of bed naked." Shelly's mouth went dry. "I still think so." Pundao's smile turned secretive. She said nothing more, only linked her arm through Shelly's as they turned back toward the house. The next day passed in a haze of sun and careful distance. They swam in the private pool. Pundao wore a black two-piece that left almost nothing to the imagination. Shelly nearly forgot how to breathe the first time she saw her step out of the changing room. They played in the water like the years of separation had never happened, laughing when waves from the open sea crashed against the rocks below and sent spray over the pool edge. Later they lay on loungers under a wide umbrella, reading in companionable silence. Every so often, Shelly would reach across the small gap and trail her fingers along Pundao's arm or the curve of her hip. Pundao allowed it, sometimes even leaned into the touch, but she never invited more. In the late afternoon, Marco appeared again, this time at the low fence that separated their property from the neighboring villa. He carried 2 cold beers and called out a greeting. Pundao, who had just climbed out of the pool and was toweling her hair, answered him with a friendly wave. Shelly watched from her lounger as the man leaned on the fence and talked, eyes lingering on the water droplets sliding down Pundao's stomach and thighs. When Pundao laughed at something he said, Shelly stood up so abruptly the lounger scraped against the stone. She walked over, took the towel from Pundao's hands, and draped it around her shoulders herself, covering as much skin as possible. "We're busy," she told Marco, voice flat. He raised both hands, still smiling. "Just being neighborly, no harm meant." Pundao's eyes sparkled with something that looked a lot like mischief. "Shelly's a little territorial. Ignore her." Shelly's jaw clenched. She steered Pundao back toward the house with a firm hand at the small of her back. Once inside, she closed the sliding door harder than necessary. "You don't have to encourage him." Pundao turned, still damp, still half-wrapped in the towel. "I was being polite, unlike someone who looks ready to punch a stranger for saying hello." "He wasn't saying hello, he was undressing you with his eyes. And you wanted to undress me with your hands, same difference, different method." Pundao stepped closer. "You're hot when you're jealous. Did you know that?" Shelly's control frayed. She closed the remaining distance and kissed her, hard, hungry, tasting salt and sunscreen. Pundao made a small sound against her mouth but did not pull away. For a few breathless seconds it felt like the old days, like nothing had ever broken between them. Then Pundao's hands came up and gently pushed at Shelly's shoulders. "Not yet," she whispered. "Earn it." Shelly rested her forehead against Pundao's and exhaled shakily. "You're going to kill me." "Possibly. But you'll die happy if you behave." They cooked dinner together that evening, the earlier tension simmering rather than boiling. Wine helped. Soft music from a speaker helped more. By the time the sky had turned fully dark, they were on the balcony again, glasses in hand, the pool lights glowing turquoise below them. The night air was warm and heavy with the scent of the sea. It was then that Marco reappeared, this time in the neighboring pool. He swam lazy laps under the underwater lights, occasionally glancing up toward their balcony. Shelly noticed. So did Pundao. He's persistent, Pundao murmured. Shelly set her glass down with a soft click. I'm going to talk to him. Shelly? But she was already moving, bare feet silent on the wooden stairs that led down to the lower terrace. She reached the shared fence just as Marco climbed out of the water streaming down his chest. I think you should find another place to swim, she said, voice low and cold. He smiled, unbothered. Public beach access. Property line ends at the sand. Your wife didn't seem to mind the view earlier. Something in Shelly snapped. She didn't remember deciding to move. One moment she was on her side of the fence, the next she had vaulted it and shoved him hard enough that he staggered back toward the pool edge. He recovered fast, swung, and caught her across the cheekbone with a glancing blow that stung sharply. She tasted copper. Her answering punch landed solidly in his gut. He doubled over with a grunt. Before either of them could escalate further, Pundao's voice cut through the night, sharp and furious. Shelly, enough! She was already halfway down the stairs, barefoot, dress swirling. She grabbed Shelly by the arm and hauled her back toward their side of the property with surprising strength. Marco straightened, one hand on his stomach, and laughed breathlessly. Crazy fucking couple. He called after them. Have fun. Pundao did not answer. She dragged Shelly upstairs into the bathroom and pushed her to sit on the closed toilet lid. The first aid kit was already open on the counter. Pundao must have anticipated this exact outcome. She soaked a cotton pad with antiseptic and pressed it to the shallow cut on Shelly's cheek. Shelly hissed. Hold still, Pundao ordered. Her hands were gentle, but her expression was pure thunder. What the hell were you thinking? He's twice your size. You could have been seriously hurt. He was looking at you. So what? Men look. Women look. The entire internet looked after that wedding stunt. You don't get to start fistfights every time someone finds me attractive. Shelly's eyes stayed locked on Pundao's face. I don't like other people wanting what's mine. Pundao's hand stilled for a second. Then she resumed dabbing at the cut, more carefully. I'm not a possession. No, you're my wife. There's a difference. Silence stretched between them, broken only by the distant sound of waves and the soft drip of water from the faucet. Pundao finished cleaning the scratch, applied a thin layer of ointment, and taped a small bandage over it. When she stepped back, Shelly caught her wrist again. Come outside with me. Pundao allowed herself to be led onto the balcony. The night was fully dark now, except for the soft glow of the pool lights below and the distant scatter of stars. Marco was still in the neighboring pool, floating on his back, clearly visible from their vantage point. He seemed to be waiting. Pundao leaned her forearms on the railing and looked down. He's still there. Shelly moved in behind her, close enough that her chest pressed against Pundao's back. Her hands settled on the warm curve of Pundao's hips. Let him watch, she said against the shell of Pundao's ear. I want him to see exactly who you belong to. Pundao's breath hitched. Shelly, you said I had to earn it. Shelly's lips brushed the side of her neck. Let me start. For a long moment, Pundao said nothing. Then she pushed her hips back just slightly into the hard line of Shelly's body. Do it, she whispered. But if you stop before I come, I'll never forgive you. Shelly's hands slid under the hem of the light dress Pundao still wore. She found bare skin, the soft heat between her thighs already slick. One finger stroked along the seam of her, slow and deliberate. Pundao's head dropped forward, a quiet sound escaping her throat. Below them, Marco had stopped floating. He was treading water now, face tilted upward, watching. Shelly added a second finger, then a third, stretching Pundao open with careful pressure. The wet sound of it was soft but unmistakable in the quiet night. She curled her fingers, found the spot that made Pundao's knees weaken, and began to fuck her in steady, deep strokes. Pundao gripped the railing hard enough that her knuckles went white. Her moans started low, then grew, no longer quiet. Shelly's free hand slid up to cup one breast through the thin fabric, thumb circling the hardened nipple. Louder, Shelly murmured against her ear. I want him to hear how good I make you feel. Pundao obeyed. The next thrust of Shelly's fingers pulled a broken cry from her that carried clearly over the water. Marco floated closer to their side of the pool, no longer pretending he wasn't watching. Shelly kept her rhythm relentless, the wet slide of 3 fingers filling the air between Pundao's increasingly desperate sounds. She could feel the flutter of muscles around her hand, the way Pundao's body tightened and trembled. "You're mine," Shelly said, voice rough. "Not his, not Prim's, not anyone else's, mine." Pundao's answer was a shattered moan as she came, hips jerking against Shelly's hand, inner walls clenching hard around the invading fingers. Shelly worked her through it, slower now, gentler, until the last tremor faded and Pundao's forehead rested against the railing. Only then did she ease her fingers free. She brought them to her own mouth and licked them clean while Pundao watched over her shoulder, eyes dark and dazed. Below, Marco finally turned and swam toward the far end of his pool without a word. Pundao straightened slowly. Her legs were unsteady. She turned in the circle of Shelly's arms and looked at her for a long time. Then she reached up, touched the bandage on Shelly's cheek with careful fingers, and kissed her, soft, lingering, tasting of salt and surrender. "That," she said against Shelly's mouth, "was a start." Shelly's arms tightened around her. "I'll keep earning it, every day, however long it takes." Pundao rested her head against Shelly's shoulder and let out a long, quiet breath. The night breeze moved around them, carrying the scent of the sea and the distant sound of waves. For the first time since Pundao had walked back into her life with a suitcase and a demand, Shelly felt the first fragile thread of something that might become peace. They stayed on the balcony until the pool lights below clicked off and the only illumination left was the moon. When they finally went inside, Pundao did not turn her back. She climbed into bed first and held the covers open in silent invitation. Shelly slid in beside her, careful of the cut on her face, and gathered her close. Pundao's hand found hers under the sheet and laced their fingers together. Neither of them spoke again that night. Words could wait. For now, the quiet press of bodies and the steady rhythm of shared breathing were enough. Outside, the tide rose and fell against the rocks. Inside, 2 women who had lost each other and found their way back began carefully the long work of becoming whole again.
Chapter 8. The real murderer had been free for 6 weeks when she walked into Shelly's law firm under a carefully chosen name. She called herself Mira. The papers were perfect. The references were fabricated with the kind of precision only someone who had spent years planning revenge could manage. She was 32, composed, attractive in a quiet way that never demanded attention, yet never quite left the room. Her resume claimed 5 years at a mid-sized firm in Singapore and 2 more in Bangkok. No one checked deeply enough. Shelly's firm was expanding. The previous executive assistant had left abruptly for a family emergency, and Mira arrived at exactly the right moment with exactly the right smile. She already knew everything about Pundao. She had studied the old case files, the photographs from the trial that never should have happened, the name change, the quiet life in Thailand that had been built on top of a lie. She had watched from a distance the day Pundao was released. She had followed the trail of money and flight records until she landed in the same city. Revenge, she had decided long ago, would not be loud. It would be intimate. It would take from Pundao the one thing she had returned to claim: Shelly. The first week, Mira simply observed. She learned the rhythm of the office, the way Shelly preferred her coffee, the precise hour she usually left, the soft way she spoke on the phone when it was her daughter calling. She noticed the framed photograph on the desk: Shelly, a little girl with the same dark eyes, and a woman whose face had been carefully cropped out of the newer versions but still lived in the older ones locked in a drawer. Mira already knew that face by heart. On the 8th day she began. It started with a note. Shelly's tailored black blazer hung on the back of her office chair while she was in a partners meeting. Mira stepped inside under the pretext of delivering signed contracts. She moved quickly. From her own bag, she took a small folded piece of cream stationery, the kind that looked expensive and personal. On it, she had written in a careful, slightly rushed hand, "Tonight. Same place. Don't keep me waiting. I still taste you. No signature." She slipped it into the inner breast pocket, the one Shelly rarely checked until she reached for her phone or keys at the end of the day. Then she left the office as calmly as she had entered. That evening, Shelly found it while she was packing her bag. She stared at the words for a long time, brow furrowed. She did not recognize the handwriting. She thought briefly of Prim, of old mistakes, of the fragile piece she was still trying to rebuild with Pundao. She crumpled the note and threw it away without mentioning it to anyone. But the paper had already done its work. The next morning, when Pundao helped her into the same blazer out of habit, the faint scent of the paper still clung to the lining. Mira's perfume was next. She wore it lightly at first, something warm and woody with a trailing note of jasmine that was not on any of Shelly's usual bottles. She made sure to stand close when she handed over documents. She leaned in when pointing at a clause on the screen. She accidentally brushed Shelly's shoulder more than once. At the end of the second week, she sprayed a single deliberate mist onto the scarf Shelly sometimes left draped over the visitor chair. By the time Shelly wore it home, the scent had settled into the fabric. Pundao noticed that night. They were in the kitchen after Kim had gone to bed. Shelly was pouring water. Pundao came up behind her, arms sliding around her waist the way she had started doing again since the beach, since the balcony, since the slow, careful rebuilding of trust. She pressed her face into the curve of Shelly's neck and inhaled, then went still. "What is that?" Shelly turned, confused. "What?" "On you. That smell, it's not yours." Shelly frowned, sniffed her own scarf, and shrugged. "Maybe the dry cleaner, or the new assistant. She's always hovering. I don't notice anymore." Pundao's eyes narrowed. "The new assistant." "Mira, you've met her. Quiet. Efficient. Why?" Pundao did not answer. She only stepped back, the easy affection in her body language cooling by several degrees. Shelly reached for her hand, but Pundao was already turning away, murmuring something about checking on Kim. The distance was small, but it was there. Mira watched it happen from a distance of her own. She created the late nights next. A series of urgent client demands appeared on Shelly's calendar. Filings that had somehow been delayed, opposing counsel who suddenly insisted on evening calls, documents that needed last-minute revisions. Mira managed the flow of information so that Shelly stayed until 8, then 9, then nearly 10 on 3 separate evenings. Each time she stayed as well, helpful and unobtrusive, bringing coffee, organizing files, offering quiet company. On the third night, she made sure the office lights on the upper floor remained the only ones glowing against the dark windows so that anyone driving past or waiting outside would see 2 silhouettes moving together long after everyone else had gone. Pundao began waiting in the car downstairs more often. She said nothing the first time. The second time she asked, carefully, if Shelly's workload had suddenly increased. The third time she simply watched the illuminated windows and did not come upstairs. Suspicion settled into her like a stone. One evening, after Kim was asleep and the house was quiet, Pundao confronted Shelly in the bedroom. Shelly was changing out of her suit. Pundao sat on the edge of the bed, arms folded, expression unreadable. "I don't trust her," she said without preamble. Shelly looked up, startled. "Who?" "Your secretary, Mira, whatever her name is." Shelly sighed, tired. "Pundao, she's an assistant. She does her job. She's been nothing but professional. She stays late with you. She smells like that perfume that was on your scarf. And the other day..." Pundao hesitated, then pushed forward. "I found a note. In the pocket of the blazer you wore last week." It was intimate. Shelly froze. You went through my pockets? I was putting your dry cleaning away. It fell out. Pundao's voice was tight. It said someone still tastes you, that they were waiting. Shelly's face went carefully blank. She remembered the note. She had thrown it away and tried to forget it. I don't know who wrote that. I threw it out. It was probably a mistake, or a prank, or Prim being spiteful again. I told you. I'm asking if anything is going on. The words landed hard. Shelly stared at her. Are you serious? I'm asking. No. Shelly's voice rose. Nothing is going on. I'm not sleeping with my assistant. I am not sleeping with anyone. I knelt in front of half of Bangkok and begged you. I took you to the beach. I let you put medicine on my face after I punched a man for looking at you. And still you don't trust me? Pundao's jaw tightened. I want to. But that woman looks at you like she already knows the taste of your mouth, and you don't even notice. Because there is nothing to notice. They went to bed angry that night. Pundao turned her back. Shelly stared at the ceiling for a long time, replaying every late night, every brush of Mira's hand, the note she had dismissed. Doubt, unwanted and sharp, began to prick at the edges of her certainty. Mira, of course, already knew the schedule. She had access to Shelly's calendar. She knew when Pundao sometimes came to the office to bring lunch or to collect Kim after school activities. She waited for the right day, a Thursday when Shelly had a late client call that Mira herself had helped arrange, and when Pundao had texted that she would stop by around 6:30 to pick Shelly up so they could go to dinner together. That afternoon, Mira prepared carefully.
She mixed a mild sedative into the tea she brought Shelly at 5:45. Not enough to knock her out completely, just enough to slow her reactions, to make her limbs heavy and her thoughts soft around the edges. Shelly drank half of it without noticing, already focused on the documents in front of her. By 6:15, her eyelids were heavier. Mira suggested she sit in the high-backed leather chair that faced the large window overlooking the city, the one that made a striking silhouette from the glass doors of the outer office. "You look exhausted," Mira said gently. "Rest for a few minutes. I'll handle the last of the filing." Shelly sank into the chair, the city lights blurring slightly. She closed her eyes. The sedative was working exactly as intended. Mira moved quickly. She loosened the top buttons of Shelly's blouse just enough to suggest intimacy. She knelt on the carpet between Shelly's knees, positioning herself carefully so that from the doorway it would look like something private and urgent was happening. She placed one hand on Shelly's thigh, the other resting lightly against the front of her trousers. She leaned forward, head bowed, the picture of a woman performing a very specific kind of service. She waited. At 6:32, the outer door opened. Pundao's familiar footsteps crossed the carpet. The glass door to Shelly's office swung inward. Pundao stopped dead. The scene registered in fragments. Shelly reclined in the chair, head tipped back, eyes half closed. Mira on her knees between her legs, face close, hands placed with unmistakable intent. The soft city light framing them both. The quiet of the empty floor. For one suspended second, no one moved. Then Pundao made a small broken sound. Shelly's eyes fluttered open at the noise. She saw Pundao standing in the doorway and tried to speak, but the words came slow and thick. "Pundao?" Mira rose smoothly, brushing imaginary dust from her skirt, her expression one of carefully crafted surprise and guilt. "Mrs. Pundao, this isn't—" Pundao did not wait for explanations. She turned and walked out. Her footsteps were uneven. By the time she reached the elevators, her vision was blurring. She did not cry until the doors closed and the car began its descent. Then the tears came hard and silent, the kind that burned because they had nowhere else to go. Upstairs, Shelly struggled to stand. The sedative made everything distant and slow. She pushed Mira away when the other woman reached for her, voice rising in confusion and anger. "What the hell were you doing? Get away from me." Mira stepped back, the picture of wounded professionalism. "You asked me to stay. You were tired. I was only trying to help you relax. You thought wrong." Shelly's hands were shaking as she buttoned her blouse with clumsy fingers. "Get out. You're fired. Effective immediately. Security will escort you." Mira left without another word, but the damage was already done. She had planted the image. She had given Pundao the exact picture she wanted her to carry. Shelly called Pundao's phone the moment she could form the numbers. It went straight to voicemail. She tried again. And again. She left the office in a haze, the city lights smearing past the car windows as the driver took her home. The house was dark when she arrived. Kim was at her grandparents' for the night, something Shelly had arranged earlier so she and Pundao could have an uninterrupted evening. The irony tasted bitter. Pundao's suitcase was gone from the closet. A few of her clothes were missing. The guest room bed had been slept in at some point, the sheets tangled. On the kitchen counter was a single sheet of paper in Pundao's handwriting. "I can't do this again. Don't call me. Don't come looking. I'll arrange everything for Kim through a lawyer." Shelly read it 3 times before the meaning fully settled. Then she sat down hard on the kitchen floor and stayed there for a long time, the quiet of the empty house pressing in from every side. Elsewhere in the city, Mira checked into a different hotel under a different name and allowed herself the first real smile in years. The first cut had been clean. There would be more. She had time. She had patience. And she had already shown Pundao that the life she had fought so hard to reclaim could still be taken apart, piece by careful piece. Pundao drove until the tears stopped. She ended up at a small, anonymous hotel near the river, paid cash, and locked the door. She sat on the edge of the bed with her phone in her hands, staring at Shelly's name on the screen. Every time it lit up with another call or message, she turned it face down again. The image of Mira on her knees would not leave. It layered itself over every soft moment of the past weeks. The beach, the balcony, the way Shelly had looked at her when she said she loved her in front of everyone who mattered. All of it now felt like a performance that had finally ended. She thought of Kim, of the small arms that wrapped around her neck every morning, of the way the little girl still called her mama even after 4 years of absence. She would not disappear from her daughter's life, but she could not stay under the same roof as the woman who had once again broken something she had only just begun to believe could be whole. In the dark of the hotel room, Pundao finally let herself cry properly, ugly, shaking sobs that left her throat raw. When they subsided, she lay down fully clothed and stared at the ceiling until exhaustion pulled her under. Back at the house, Shelly eventually forced herself to stand. She called her parents. She called Koi. She left messages for thought. She tried Pundao again and again until the mailbox was full. She walked through every room looking for some sign that the note had been a moment of anger rather than a final decision. She found none. By midnight, she was sitting on the edge of their bed, the bed they had only recently begun sharing again, holding one of Pundao's discarded shirts against her face. The scent of her wife's perfume, the real one, still clung to the fabric. It mixed with the faint ghost of Mira's jasmine and made her stomach turn. She did not sleep. In the morning, Kim would ask where Mama Pundao had gone. Shelly would have to invent an answer that did not destroy the child. She would have to face the empty side of the bed and the knowledge that the past had finally reached through the years and closed its fingers around the fragile thing they had been trying to rebuild. And somewhere in the city, the woman who had once framed Pundao for murder was already planning the next move, quiet and patient and very far from finished. The house felt larger without Pundao in it. Every sound echoed. The coffee machine hissed too loudly. The clock in the hallway ticked with deliberate cruelty. Shelly moved through the rooms like a ghost of herself, replaying the office scene in endless variations, searching for the moment she should have seen the trap. She found none. Mira had been too careful, too precise. When the first light of dawn touched the windows, she was still awake, phone in hand, waiting for a reply that did not come. The silence was complete. The war that had begun years earlier in another country had simply changed battlefields. And this time, the first casualty was the trust they had only just begun to repair. Pundao woke in the hotel room to the sound of the river and the knowledge that nothing would be simple again. She washed her face, stared at her reflection, and forced herself to think about lawyers and visitation schedules and how to explain to a 5-year-old that the family she had only just gotten back was already breaking. She did not cry again. The tears had been spent. What remained was a cold, steady resolve to protect Kim and to keep herself from being destroyed a second time. Outside, the city continued its ordinary morning. Cars moved, people went to work, and in a quiet corner of it, the real murderer poured herself a cup of coffee and began drafting the next careful step in a revenge that had waited 4 years to taste blood again. The chapter of their second chance had ended on a single, devastating image. What came next would be written in the space that image left behind, sharp, unfinished, and already bleeding.
Chapter 9. Shelly's hands would not stop shaking. The office felt too large and too quiet at the same time, every empty corridor echoing with the sound of her own hurried footsteps. She had already checked the reception desk twice, the conference rooms, the small kitchen on the executive floor. No one had seen Pundao leave. An employee from the legal department finally approached her, looking uncomfortable. "Ms. Shelly, she came by yesterday afternoon. She waited outside your office for almost 20 minutes. Then she left looking upset." Shelly did not wait for more explanations. She walked straight to the security office and demanded the footage from the previous day. The guard pulled up the cameras without question. On the screen, she watched Pundao arrive, phone clutched tightly in one hand, face pale. She stood outside Shelly's closed door for a long time. Then the door opened and the secretary, Lena, the new hire with the soft voice and the too perfect smile, stepped out. What followed made Shelly's stomach turn to ice. From the angle of the hallway camera, it looked exactly the way Lena had staged it. Shelly was seated in her chair, head tilted back against the leather, eyes half closed. Lena was on her knees between Shelly's legs, face hidden by the desk. Pundao's expression crumbled in real time. She took one step forward, then another, then turned and walked away so fast the camera almost lost her. Shelly watched the clip 3 times before she could speak. "I was drugged," she said flatly. "I never touched her. Find out everything about that woman, now." She left the building without waiting for answers. Outside, Bangkok traffic roared around her like white noise. She called Pundao's number again and again until the voicemail message began to feel like a personal insult. She drove to their house, empty. The air inside smelled faintly of the laundry detergent Pundao preferred. She checked the guest room, the garden, the small balcony where they sometimes drank coffee in the morning. Nothing. She called Koi. No answer. She called Thought. The phone rang 4 times before he picked up. "She's not with me," he said, voice carefully neutral. "She said she needed air. That's all I know." Shelly hung up and sat in the driver's seat of her car for a full minute, forehead pressed against the steering wheel. The image from the security footage kept replaying behind her eyes. Pundao's face collapsing, the way she had turned and walked away without a sound. She could still feel the residual heaviness in her limbs from whatever Lena had put in her drink. Shame burned under her skin, mixed with a fury so sharp it made her teeth ache. She thought of every time she had pushed Pundao away in the past weeks, every cold word, every night she had chosen the couch instead of reaching for her. The fear that she had finally driven her away for good settled like a stone in her stomach. Her phone buzzed, an unknown number. "If you want to know why I did what I did, come alone. Room 1207, The Oriental, 1 hour." Shelly stared at the message until the letters blurred. She did not text back. She simply started the engine and drove. The hotel lobby smelled of polished wood and expensive perfume. She took the elevator to the 12th floor, every floor number lighting up like a countdown. Room 1207 was at the end of the corridor. She knocked once. The door opened almost immediately. Lena stood there in a dark silk blouse, hair perfectly smooth, smile still soft. "You came. Good." Shelly stepped inside and closed the door behind her. The room was large, the curtains drawn against the afternoon light. A half-empty bottle of wine sat on the table, 2 glasses. One of them had lipstick on the rim. "Where is she?" Shelly asked. "Who?" Lena's voice was almost playful. "Your wife? I wouldn't know. I only wanted a private conversation with you. You drugged me. I helped you relax. You worked too hard." Lena poured wine into the clean glass and held it out. Shelly did not take it. "You should sit. You're pale." "Tell her the truth," Shelly said. "Tell Pundao what you did, that I never touched you, that you staged the whole thing." Lena laughed, a light, almost musical sound. "Why would I do that? She already believes what she saw. And what she saw was me on my knees for you. It's a very clear picture." Shelly's hands curled into fists. "You framed her years ago. You killed your roommate and let her take the blame. You spent 4 years free while she sat in a cell. And now you're here, in my company, under a fake name, trying to destroy what's left of her life. You put notes in my jacket. You sprayed perfume on my clothes. You made sure we stayed late so she would see what you wanted her to see. You planned every single step." Lena's smile did not change, but something colder moved behind her eyes. She was always so trusting, so easy to set up. The police in Australia never looked twice, and here, well, it was almost fun watching her fall apart again, watching you fall apart too. You should have seen your face when she locked you out of the bedroom, so desperate, so lonely. It made everything worth the trouble of coming to Thailand. "You're going to tell her the truth," Shelly repeated, stepping closer. Her voice stayed low, controlled, the same tone she used in court when she already knew she had won. "Or I will make sure every camera in this city has your face on it by tonight. I will make sure the Australian authorities hear every detail of how you lived free while she served your sentence." "You won't," Lena said softly. "Because if you do, I'll tell everyone about the little arrangement we had while she was gone. About how you came to me when you were lonely. How you used me to fill the space she left. How you—" The bathroom door opened. Pundao stepped out, phone held steady in one hand, the screen still recording. Her eyes were red but dry. She looked at Lena the way someone looks at something already dead. "I heard enough," she said. Lena's face drained of color. She took one step backward, then another, toward the door. Pundao moved faster. She blocked the exit with her body and raised the phone higher. "Stay," she said. "You're not leaving until the police arrive." Shelly's voice was quiet. "You planned this." Pundao did not look at her yet. "I got the same number texting me. She wanted me to catch you. I decided to catch her instead. I texted you from her phone after I borrowed it for a minute this morning. I needed you here. I needed her to talk." Lena lunged for the door. Pundao caught her wrist, twisted, and forced her into a chair. Shelly was already on the phone with the police, voice steady, giving the room number and the full name Lena had used at the company. Within 15 minutes, 2 officers were at the door. Pundao handed over the recording without ceremony. Lena's protests turned into threats, then into silence when they read her rights. After they took her away, the room felt suddenly too quiet. Shelly closed the door and leaned against it. Pundao stood by the window, arms crossed, staring out at the river. "You thought I would believe her," Shelly said. "I almost did." Pundao's voice was low. "For a few hours I did. I saw what she wanted me to see and I ran. I always run when it hurts too much. I told myself I was protecting Kim, protecting you. But mostly, I was protecting myself from the possibility that the life I came back for was already gone. Shelly crossed the room slowly. I would never... I know. Pundao turned. Her eyes were wet now. I know you wouldn't. But for a moment, the old fear came back. The same fear that made me leave the first time. That if I stayed, I would only bring more damage. That you would be better without me. Shelly reached for her hand. Pundao let her take it. I was never better without you, Shelly said. I was surviving, that's all. And Kim, she asked for you every night for months after you left. She still does, in small ways. She draws pictures with 3 people in them. Always 3. Pundao's breath hitched. She pulled Shelly closer until their foreheads touched. I'm sorry I didn't trust you, she whispered. I'm sorry I ran. I'm sorry I ever made you feel like you had to. Shelly's hands settled on Pundao's waist. No more secrets, no more running. We decide now, together, that we trust each other even when the evidence looks ugly, especially then. Pundao nodded against her. Together. They stayed like that for a long time, the city noise rising from the streets below, the river moving steadily past the windows. When they finally left the hotel, it was early evening. Shelly drove them home in silence, one hand resting on Pundao's thigh the entire way. Kim was already in her pajamas when they walked through the front door. She ran to Pundao first, small arms wrapping around her waist. Mama Dao, you're home. Mummy said you were busy. Are you done being busy? Pundao knelt and gathered her close. I'm done, completely done. And tomorrow we're going on a trip. All 3 of us.
Kim's eyes went huge. Where? Japan, Shelly said, coming to stand behind them. Tokyo first, then maybe Kyoto if you're good. Kim squealed so loudly the nanny appeared from the kitchen with a worried expression, then smiled when she understood. Ming and Wing came downstairs a few minutes later, drawn by the noise. Shelly's father looked at Pundao with careful hope. She met his eyes and gave a small nod. Forgiveness was already given. Tonight was for moving forward. They ordered food and ate on the living room floor because Kim insisted the dining table was too serious for celebration. After Kim finally fell asleep between them on the big couch, Shelly carried her to bed and returned to find Pundao waiting in their bedroom, already changed into one of Shelly's old shirts. "You're sure about Japan?" Pundao asked. "I'm sure about us," Shelly answered. "Japan is just the first place we go while we practice being sure every day." Pundao smiled, soft and tired and real. She held out her hand. Shelly took it and let herself be pulled down onto the bed. They did not rush. There was no performance, no jealousy, no leftover anger to burn through. Just the slow rediscovery of each other's bodies, the quiet confirmation that they still fit, that the years and the prisons and the lies had not changed the fundamental shape of them. Later, when the house was completely still, Shelly spoke into the dark. "I used to think love was something you either had or you lost, like a possession. I know better now. It's something you choose. Every morning, even when it's hard, especially when it's hard." Pundao's fingers traced slow circles on her shoulder. "Then I choose you, again and again, for as long as you'll let me." "Forever is a long time," Shelly murmured. "Good," Pundao said. "We'll need it." In the morning, they packed light. Kim insisted on bringing her favorite stuffed rabbit and 3 pairs of sparkly shoes, just in case. The flight to Tokyo left in the afternoon. At the airport, Ming and Wing hugged them longer than necessary. Thought teased Pundao about finally becoming a proper tourist wife. Koi pressed a small amulet into her daughter's hand and told her to come home safe. On the plane, Kim fell asleep against Pundao's side within 20 minutes. Shelly looked at the two of them, the woman she had almost lost twice, the child they had made together, and felt something settle in her chest that had been restless for years. She reached across the narrow space and laced her fingers through Pundao's. "No more cameras," she said quietly. "No more secrets. Just us." Pundao turned her head and kissed the back of Shelly's hand. "Just us," she agreed. Outside the window, the sky shifted from blue to gold to the deep indigo of high altitude. Below them, the Gulf of Thailand stretched wide and calm. Ahead of them waited neon streets and quiet temples and the long, ordinary days of a family that had finally stopped running. Shelly closed her eyes and let the steady sound of the engines carry her forward. They landed in Tokyo under a soft evening rain. Kim woke up excited, pointing at every illuminated sign as if she could already read Japanese. The hotel near Shinjuku was modest by Shelly's usual standards, but perfect for the three of them: 2 connecting rooms, a small balcony, a view of wet streets and glowing billboards. They ate ramen at a counter so narrow their elbows touched. Kim declared it the best food in the entire world. Pundao laughed until she had to cover her mouth with her napkin. That night, after Kim was asleep in the adjoining room, Shelly and Pundao stood on the balcony in the rain. The city hummed around them, endless and bright. "I used to imagine this," Pundao said, "when I was in the cell. Not the rain or the city. Just the possibility of standing somewhere with you again without counting the days until it ended." Shelly slipped an arm around her waist. "We're not counting anymore." They stayed outside until their clothes were damp and their skin cool. Then they went inside and closed the door on the world for a while. The next days unfolded slowly. They took Kim to a small aquarium where jellyfish drifted like living lanterns. They rode the Yamanote line in a complete circle just because Kim wanted to see every station. They got lost in a department store and found a toy shop that sold tiny plastic food. Kim filled a bag with miniature sushi and insisted they keep it forever. In the evenings, they walked through parks where the trees were just beginning to turn. Pundao held Shelly's hand openly, without looking over her shoulder. Shelly let herself be held. One afternoon, they sat on a bench near the Imperial Palace, while Kim chased pigeons. Shelly's phone buzzed with a message from the Thai police. Lena had been formally charged with harassment, administering a controlled substance without consent, and identity fraud. Extra charges related to the old Australian case were already being prepared with the cooperation of authorities there. The message ended with a simple note that the recording had been decisive. Shelly showed it to Pundao. Pundao read it twice, then put the phone face down on the bench. "It's over," she said. "It's over," Shelly agreed. They sat in silence for a long time, watching their daughter run. The past did not disappear. It simply stopped having the power to decide what came next. On their last night in Tokyo, they ordered room service and let Kim stay up later than usual. She fell asleep halfway through a cartoon about talking animals, her head resting against Pundao's arm. Shelly carried her to bed carefully, tucking the stuffed rabbit under the blanket the way Kim always insisted. When she returned, she found Pundao already under the covers, waiting, the soft light from the bedside lamp casting gentle shadows across her face. "Come here," Pundao said. Shelly did. They talked for a while about nothing important, plans for Kyoto, whether Kim would like the bamboo forest, whether they should buy ridiculous tourist hats just to make her laugh. Eventually, the conversation slowed into comfortable silence. Shelly traced the line of Pundao's collarbone with one finger, memorizing the feel of her skin again. "I love you," she said. The words felt simple and enormous at the same time, carrying years of longing and relief and quiet promise. Pundao smiled in the half-dark. I know. I love you too, even when you're impossible, especially then. Shelly kissed her, slow and certain. Outside, the rain had stopped. The city lights painted soft rectangles across the ceiling. Somewhere far below, a train passed, the sound rising and fading like a long breath. They did not need to say anything else. The years of distance, the prison walls, the lies and the fear, all of it had led them here, to this quiet room, and the simple fact of being together. In the morning they packed again, this time for the short trip to Kyoto. Kim insisted on wearing the sparkliest of her 3 pairs of shoes and refused to take them off even for the train. At the station, she held both their hands and swung between them, laughing every time her feet left the ground. Passengers smiled at the 3 of them. For once, Shelly did not care who was watching. Shelly looked at Pundao over their daughter's head. Pundao looked back, eyes clear, mouth soft with the kind of happiness that did not need to announce itself. It was the same look she had worn years ago, before everything fractured, and somehow it was new as well. The train doors closed, the platform slid away. Ahead of them, the tracks curved into the green hills, carrying them toward whatever ordinary, extraordinary life they would build next. There would still be hard days. There would still be moments when old fears rose, but they would face them side by side. They were going home eventually. But for the first time in years, home was already with them, 2 adults who had chosen each other again, and the small, bright child who had never stopped believing they would. The end.